Right, everyone, welcome to the watch along. Oh my days, so many watch alongs this weekend. And this is the culmination of the Logitech McLaren G Challenge. I've been doing every qualifier round this year and made a sort of guide video on it. And now we're going to see how the pros do. So North American and EU pros, which is quite exciting. So welcome along. And yeah, it's like Forza on the channel. I did a lot of the G Challenge sat here actually, using my RS track. Although I think I switched to the round wheel for one of them. So 34 seconds to go. Welcome along. If you're here to chill out. Welcome Game Locked. And there is the giveaway as well. This is a brand new giveaway. As part of the grand finals, Logitech G have given me another G Pro to give away. So the link is in the pinned comment. Check eligibility, because it's not every single country is eligible. And if you are eligible, then good luck. Welcome Flatka.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Logitech McLaren G Challenge Grand Finals. We're going to be hopping into these races in a
Can you hear it?
But of course, we want to cover some things here at the top of the show. Once again, I am Frank, and joining me today at the desk is Blue. Blue, how are we feeling today?
The Logitech.
Feeling pretty good. Excited for some great action. We've got 16 racers lined up across 4 regions. We're going to go through 3 tracks each. I'm excited to see what ends up happening here today.
Yeah, going to be an exciting day of racing for sure. Before we get into that action, we want to give you guys a little bit of a sense of how these drivers got to the final grid. So
I didn't get to the finals.
This competition started back in November with our race days in-store competitions where drivers could
it's pretty crazy. You can qualify by the in-store thing. Welcome JS.
And then of course we had our online rivals qualifiers taking
and then it
place
was in Forza.
Forza Motorsport. Those ran throughout the year, and then those drivers qualified for our regional.
Is it Forza or Forza? How do you pronounce Forza, phonetically speaking?
Here today, like you mentioned, 16 drivers from each region going to be duking it out.
There's money. You get $100 even if you last.
Format and pricing they will be competing in. Like we said, 16 drivers across 3 races with 4 qualifying laps each and 10 racing laps.
Welcome, Mary.
Now,
good to see you.
Pricing, this is where things get interesting and fun here today for the entire grid. There is prize money on the line, with first place taking home $3,000, second place taking home $2,000, third $1,000, and of course down the line. Now the real exciting thing is first place from each region is going to win that VIP Spanish GP racing experience. So while there is prize money, first place definitely the most exciting prize.
The M23
available.
Was so much fun to drive.
You know, as we get through that, we're gonna keep an eye on our first place winners, but you know, there's cars and tracks. We've got a little mix of
I want to see how they drive the P1 as well.
So, Blue, why don't you talk to us a little bit about what the drivers are going to be racing and where they're going to be racing today?
Yeah, we've got a nice little tour going through kind of the legacy of McLaren, especially through the late kind of 1900s there as well. We'll start off with the 1976 M23 on the Catalunya GP.
M23 is a really nice car.
James Hunt car from the 2013 movie Rush, so that'll be a nice little historic throwback there for those who have their racing history down. Catalunya is going to be a nice way to start our players off as well, because it's a very well-balanced track testing.
Yeah, let me know how you're doing, everyone. It's hot in the UK right now.
From that,
it's
we'll
super hot.
A little bit, move up to around 700-800 horsepower with that MP44 with the Honda engine inside of it on Silverstone. That's for sure going to test our drivers' maneuverability. Way more turns coming into that track. And then finally, we go to Watkins Glen, where it's all about maintaining momentum through those elongated curves, and especially so now we step up to the P1, which is going to be pushing about 1,000 horsepower. So that's a lot for these players to work through on that final final race.
Yeah, putting the challenge in G Challenge here today for our drivers with that full circuit, the full gamut of cars and tracks. So with that being said, of course, schedule
I don't think
for
I can
today, we're going
pronounce
to start
Forza
off with
how it's
our
meant to be pronounced.
EMEA region, do a little brief recap of our LATAM and APAC Grand Finals, and then we'll finish off the day with our NA region. So
finishing off with America.
Exciting racing coming up. You won't want to go anywhere, so we're going to throw it to a brief commercial break, and then we'll be back with first race in EMEA. So stay tuned.
I'm not used to Twitch.
The Logitech G Pro Racing
it's
wheel and
Rich.
pedals are equally at home on desk setups or
It's
sim
Logi
rigs.
Rich.
Here's how to get them hooked up to your desk. Place the
Welcome
wheel
back,
unit on your
welcome
desk
in.
and attach the clamp.
This is the guy I interviewed in Germany.
The Pro wheel has 11 Newton meters of direct drive torque, so we recommend using a sturdy desk. The Pro pedals have a flat back edge,
He's a
so
cool
you can
dude.
fit them up against your wall, so there's no wandering pedals under heavy braking.
A follow-up
Now,
interview in the works.
you're ready to go.
I think he basically created this, or he set up the team that made it, which is my wheel. Oh, I didn't. Oh, okay, yeah. I've taken my clutch pedal out. Forza. These are all like little adverts. They're like another one. The Astro A50X. I should do the voiceovers. The Astro A50. The Astro A50X is the ultimate Xbox, PC, and PlayStation headset for gamers. If you want to game faster and louder and clearer with the Pro G graphene drivers, breakthrough precision and clarity, and in black as well. HDMI for playing games on them, and superb rear 24-bit audio with levitating skills, rocket boosters, and pro-grade light-speed wireless included as well. I could do these. Welcome, Ruud van Dien. Oh, why have I gone all wavy? It didn't like it. The stream didn't like it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with your Logitech McLaren G Challenge Winter Season Grand Final. We're going to be getting into our first race here in EMEA, and we're going to take a look at our Race 1 qualifying. So in first, no surprises here, TPR.
Yeah, Balkit is always at the top.
Fastest lap time.
Balkit's always like
two-time
ridiculously quick.
G Challenge winner. And going down the grid, we have Arby and Mitch.
Pasha, I just entered for the wheel movers and pedal. Went to let me enter Discord. Second one.
Here in our qualifying to point out before we get into this first race.
Send me a screenshot in Discord,
very tight
and I'll check
on this race. Just looking at the qualification times right there, Miguel stands out a little bit between P3 and P4.
I think if you're saying you need to join, just leave it and rejoin.
11, all within about a second or so of each other. There was very close qualifying time, so expect some very tight races in that part of the pack in the actual race as well, in my opinion.
And getting into this first race again, like you kind of mentioned, expecting some tight battles throughout the whole grid, and we'll see if TPR Boquet can hang on to this P1 position throughout our 10 laps here.
It didn't work for racing 2. You left to. Is it working now?
Leading the charge in
kind of
pole
makes
position,
sense.
but pretty much immediate pressure coming in from Mitch. He actually does pass him there for a second. Miguel's going to mess with his flow a little bit.
So it's a 10-lap race
a little bit wide to the left
at Catalunya. You see what I mean about Forza is so much slidier.
For at least the first
Forza is so much slidier than GT. Look,
running deeper into the track.
Like.
Yeah, definitely.
You have a lot more to do in terms of the feel. You will see in these races, especially with the McLaren, the M7B. It's very, very, very alive.
A bit more money with those other positions down below.
I don't normally look at replay footage like
dollar
this. I don't
amount,
see it.
but really every position can matter here in this season of the G Challenge. So all of these, little battles that we see throughout the grid, that mid-pack, all dollar amounts associated with those. So while Boquet and Mitch are hanging on,
hopefully we'll see someone else just checking it's working.
All those other little positions,
maybe it is cold tires actually on the start as well,
both in the final standings and in the dollar amount at the end of the day.
Boquet pushing it a little wide there.
I don't know about not the best. I'm just saying that GT is more on the understeery scale. Forza is more on the oversteery scale. Like, but a lot of people just don't know there's a scale. And you'll see here, like,
some long-standing effects on our prize money as well.
You see the way the cars rotate over that curve. Like, I'm not able to really. I'm not good enough at Forza to be able to be fast doing that. But I'm sure these pro drivers will use that rotation.
Slowly start eclipsing this lead we see at the moment.
How many entries for each bundle? I think there's like maybe 8 in there. That's like the usual Gleam one. Oh, look at that wide line. Look at the wide line on 7. That's a hell of a move.
As Mitch is able to
That's
make
an insane move. What a cutback.
Nicely played by Mitch. Like I said, just a little bit more consistent.
That is a crazy good move, like, in all fairness.
Running his way up into some of those crucial slowdown moments with a little bit too much force, just braking slightly too late, costing him those crucial milliseconds. And finally, as we rounded back around towards L for the first turn, that gave Mitch the window he needed to pass for P1, at least at this point in the race.
Yeah, and you see in those 4th and 5th positions, all very tight as well. But Mitch really trying to do his best to hang on to this one. Boquet struggling just a little bit there.
Off.
Bit shaken up, like you kind of mentioned, going through some of those turns with just a little bit too much speed.
Oh, Quinton from GT,
gas, but Kaiser Miguel, we see Boquet exchanging spots there as Boquet does his best to work his way back up into pole.
A little slowdown there as he went into the sand. Doesn't seem to be slowing him down too much. Already regaining one of the lost positions he found. I'm curious to see if he's going to be able to speed all the way back up.
Look at the drifting around there.
Mitch again,
like,
but Barcode definitely
he's drifting it and then kind of
He's bringing a lot of speed
regripping.
Right
see that? See, they're really. I would love to see the inputs.
To be fair, this is great news for Mitch, as you can already
see. Look at that. I'd love to see the inputs and how much throttle they're giving and whether they're trying to induce rotation in this way.
While Boquet works on working his way back into P2.
Yeah, Boquet is starting to close the gap here on Barcode, but like you mentioned, Mitch kind of thankfully letting these two battle it out as Boquet was able to take that position.
Is up, he's down, he's everywhere.
For him on P1 as he tries to find some speed to work his way back up to start to battle again with
I would have
Mitch.
loved to have been part of this race, but
considering again
how
he's
far
been
off the back would I have been
before, we somewhat expect this type of performance out of him, but it's still impressive nonetheless to have a slip up like
Open
that,
21
all the way
to
up in the sand and then bringing back those 2 positions seemingly effortlessly. Just 1 lap later, already back in P2. So
Boquet going to win this?
That we've been seeing in the last few seasons as well. Down in the midfield, though, a few more exchanges.
Have a look at the gap from leader to Boquet.
P9 away from Cotillo and P10. So still a lot of action going on there in the mid-pack. And it's at this key point in the race, too. This is the thing to pay attention to on Catalunya. It's really this first third or so of the track, finishing things up.
Look at that. Look at the drifting line through there.
In my opinion, things get a little bit easier for these players to navigate. That's where they can really gain some time, but they've got to be careful in that first section there. That's definitely where we're going to see some overtaking.
Dude, look at that.
Have been already just in these first 3 laps.
Yeah, lots of positions being exchanged, but like you kind of alluded to, that racing getting a little bit cleaner.
You gotta kind of throw it in. Welcome Lee B, aka
now it's just a matter of whether Mitch can hold on to this.
You gotta sort of turn in earlier, and you are gonna slide a bit, and then you hit the apex gracefully.
They're hanging on to P3. Some other shoutouts like Kaiser Miguel, Raptor.
Message retracted. What's happened?
Performing extremely well. Been exchanging some positions.
Messages have been retracted. Is it working now?
Trying to work his way up to battle it out. Trying to inch every position they can out of this race, because like we mentioned at the top of the show, we're going to be going through 3 races here today with those point values, additional points,
so
single point being awarded for the fastest lap. So, you know, while Boquet might finish in 2nd here, trying to battle his way back up with Mitch, if he doesn't find that position, there's other ways throughout the race to kind of make some of those things up, and you know, that kind of applies throughout the rest of the grid. So we'll have to see how things shake out. But I know one thing about Boquet, after having spoke with him after previous championship wins, is that, you know, he always has his eyes set out for first place, really wants to make a name for himself, kind of leave that Forza legacy
1.2 now.
Alongside him, be associated with being one of the fastest. So while this is the first time we've kind of seen him,
if we don't know, so TPR Boquet is like, when I do G Challenge, he's always top of the leaderboard.
And continuing
he's like Michael Schumacher in his prime. Oh, is that contact?
Climbing up some positions there as the rest of the grid shuffles.
The Johan
Johan going a little too wide there on an interesting spot on the track as well.
So he's like
costing him big,
just he's like a Schumacher in prime.
As a result of that one, with some more shifts still happening there towards the front of the pack as well. Quinton Gen Raptors seem to be going back at it. They've changed positions 2 or 3 times, it seems, just in the last lap alone. So like I said before, as we drop down below P3, that
obviously for the replay, I think they're keeping these settings to keep it really nice and
relatively
fluid.
Close contended at this point, but at the moment we are still seeing Boquet continuing to close the gap against Mitch, and he's still got about half the race to actually
he's under a second now,
so that's still absolutely in the
cards under a
for him
second
as well. We've been seeing that leader time, the interval there on
taking
the
out the board,
steadily decreasing. It started out at about 1.5 when he lost P2 a couple of laps back, but you can see he shrunk it considerably by about a third of that full time already.
Yeah, and keep in mind he climbed his way all the way back up into second as well. You know, after flirting with the dirt a little bit there, has really.
I think if you have the crown, it means
love to see it as he continues to
you
shrink
bought Forza
that
Motorsport
down.
day one.
Yeah, he was our first place in qualifying as well. So you know the pace is there for him. It's just whether or not he can keep it clean throughout the second half of this race. But you know, Barcode a little bit of distance behind him, and the field starts to separate a little bit through there, but we have Quinton on the heels there, Raptors as well, all fighting for those
how big the rear wheels were in these.
There's a move made.
Cars.
Quinton going to be working his way up. Boquet still trying to cut down this lead, and you know, again, money on the line here.
Surely
for
Boquet
every
is going to win this.
So these battles from Quinton, Kaiser, Raptors, Williams, all kind of have that dollar amount associated with them. So love seeing all of these racers continue to battle throughout the course of the race here.
Quinton and Miguel seem to be the real story right now in terms of close contenders at this point.
Oh, so where's that cone come from?
For the past few laps, it seems, at least right there. You can see only a 0.3 second lead so far for Quinton, so he's fighting hard to try and hold on to that position. And unfortunately, it has created a gap to try and move him
close
up
now. Would
he
send
5 seconds
Surely not.
Him and Barcode,
Number 1 on the car.
Still makes for compelling racing for those two. And as we saw on the prize graphic, quite a bit of money we won there as one of us hits the braking indicators coming up here on L for the start of lap 6.
No slowing down as we reach towards
let me know what you
the
thought,
final laps here of our first race. Rest of the grid coming through.
So this is the battle for like
the P11 continues to climb throughout that leaderboard. Boquet now trying to close this gap on Mitch. Can a move be made here? We'll have to see if he can find it.
So this is where the pressing issue for Boquet that we saw earlier in the race will be brought up once again. Can he control his pacing coming around these pivotal turns, like right here as we come out of seat, working our way up towards Worth as well? Is he going to be able to get that slowdown pacing that he needs? But he'll continue to push it a little slippy there as he goes back around, working his way up towards camp. So he wants that P1, and he's willing to risk, at the very least, his tires in the process of doing that by trying to gain a couple of extra milliseconds here to catch up.
Interesting comment in this.
Yeah,
in the
Boquet trying to sniff out
is everyone on controller
or
into
this turn.
wheel? I like this camera.
Look
at the way the car pivots.
A little bit shaky.
Do you see how it pivots?
But trying to keep things under wraps, applying
so you got to get on the power and pivot
to Mitch. Mitch doing a great job of defending. Almost maybe shocked that Boquet worked his way all the way back into this position, continuing to fight for it as Boquet tries to sniff out that first place.
Oh, man.
Nice line by Mitch there. We'll see if he's going to be able to keep up this speed or not. We saw a very interesting one taken by Boquet as well, and he's still sitting right behind it. I think he drops back by a couple of feet
the outside,
here, however.
maybe?
So this is the pivotal junction
straight
right
in the
here.
inside.
He's going to dive for it at the moment. Looks like Boquet going to try to work his way on the inside.
Imagine if they make contact.
But no, Mitch goes wide again.
Oh my God!
Boquet going to bully out his opponent a little bit.
Is he letting him go back or something? What's going on here?
At least is going to retake P1. They'll go back and forth for it here on the 7th lap. Boquet
still on the outside, still needs space.
And now really just trying to press Mitch out of the track entirely.
Oh my God, he's going to hang it around the outside. No chance.
As we come back around Repsol.
Yeah, it looks like the brake marks regenerate. Is he still kind of there?
Just not able to keep his speed up as we come through the exits.
That's good racing, Reed Van Loon.
One more big moment right here, but it seems at least
I think Boquet's just going to have the pace,
Mitch is going to cede P1 over to Boquet as he pushes ahead coming up on Worth.
An incredible move by
That's great racing.
The resilience out of both of those drivers on lap 7. Mitch still right on those heels, though, looking to take P1 back from
these
that
guys are the class of the field.
Battle by Boquet.
But they're so far ahead.
Will the move be able to be made here? Both of those players just flirting with it for the time being. We've seen Boquet on offense And now we'll have a chance to see how he
is
is
a bit slidey by
on
Bocat
defense
there,
as Mitch continues to press the issue.
There's a lesson here to potentially be learned by Mitch, and he's only got 3 laps to adjust on it as well. He's noticed now that Bocat is playing very aggressively for track control, not seeding over those inner lanes when he wants to make a pass.
Sounds like he's playing some offense
situations. So that's going to be the strategy now for Mitch. Is he
cone.
going to get as
That cone gets absolutely annihilated. Look at that.
Past few laps. That's what's going to be necessary in order to pass.
It's like a 22-yard up dropout.
Could cost him big, of course, if things go completely awry.
Go on, Mitch. Send it. Send it.
Right here, but no. Once again, Bocat just not giving him the space he needs to progress.
I can't believe they're taking this off the F1 calendar. That is ridiculous.
It's not over yet, and
there's no way this should be off the F1 calendar.
As we work our way up through
the amount of side by side. I know this is Forza, but you know the amount of side by side you can have.
Opportunity to pass as we come up onto Repsol.
Mitch trying to find the inside, trying to find the outside, trying to find any opening
side
against Bocat here, and Barcode just happy to let this
battle
play out and hold on to that 3rd position. As these two continue to go at it, turn after turn. Bocat hard fought back into P1, but Mitch
absolutely eat that sausage curve
giving
there.
Him any moment
to
take a breather, since that position was earned back for him. In lap 8 now, as these two continue to duke it out. Mitch now trying to just hold on. Bocat again trying to control that track, and both of these drivers looking so clean in these final laps here on
just what happens if they do come together in a serious way, like how the collision physics are.
Bocat's been going all over the track here. It's not very easy for
Any
Mitch
track
to
limits here? Do you reckon there might be penalties?
Try and push the inside or outside lane here. Bocat is not making himself predictable in any sense. But however, Bocat slipping just a little bit here as we come up on lap 9.
No slipstream and up the inside.
Goes pretty much the full length of the rest of the track here. So that's going to be an opportunity for Mitch to carve ahead once again. But once more, Bocat's been aggressive here on the first turn.
So Mitch is ahead
is he going to be able to use this to take it over? And no, Mitch finally getting aggressive himself, slaps himself on the inside.
Yeah, this is what I think people don't realize about the difference between driving a Forza and GT.
For Bocat that could have allowed him to retake.
I think that explains some of the more jerky movements. It's like to get that rotation drift, rotate drift.
These two just continuing to battle back and forth is probably one of the most exciting battles we've seen in the G Challenge on Forza. As they continue to trade blows with Mitch currently coming out on top.
Welcome. How do you say
Blue,
Forza
just that
correctly?
Little bit of slippage from Bocat gave Mitch just the opening he needed to gain the lead on that straight. Bocat, though, managing to find another opening and reclaims a P1.
It's getting really bumper car-y here between these two as well in the final.
Oh, this is the McLaren M7B, isn't it? This is the one that I did the video on. This is a really fun car to drive though, because the more you get on the power, it just rotates. So you can get on the power super early. It gives you rotation.
To try and push our way towards those final few turns. There should be another opportunity here, as we've also seen Bocat slip a little bit on this final turn at New Holland. That's a pivotal moment where you need to pick up as much speed as possible. So if that happens again, we could potentially see Mitch take over once again, just like he did on the last lap.
Yep, and as we saw some other intense battles,
do they have the chicane for Formula One?
Grid, but this one continues to go back
I don't think they do now. I can't even Formula One. I want to see the chicane.
Playing that lead, little bit of dust kicked up and around this corner. Mitch
still ahead, but I reckon Bocat's going to win this. How can you bet against Bocat?
Bocat tries to find another line throughout the next corner. As we're in our final lap, it's tough to predict who's going to come out on top here.
Oh, we can send it.
Some great work. He has found the quote-unquote
bit of contact. So can he hang it around the outside, Mitch here? Looked like he slid a little bit.
At least wants to pass Mitch over the course of this
send it. He will send it.
Still finding
some ways. Look at the guy behind. Look at Barcode, by the way.
Repsol there. The battle continuing to work its way into seat. Mitch takes over once again here, coming up onto Worth. A big turn after that coming in from Campsa as well. Mitch could truly gain some pacing here.
Bocat into the hairpin.
Looks like he might just very well do that. The slightly more consistent driving that we've seen out of him could end up keeping him in P1 for this final stretch of the race here as we come back around for the final few seconds of our first race of the series.
Yeah, Mitch staying so clean in those pivotal moments kind of gives him just the edge when he needs to over Bocat.
There is some magic paper shunned back cars here. I think they're running at low settings here for
there behind Mitch
to have the frame rate pretty steady, I think. Or just
and I
to
think
take their
that little
chances.
slip we saw a couple of turns back from Boquet, that's going to seal it here for race number
wow,
1.
Boquet
Gives
doesn't
Mitch a
win.
healthy gap to cross the finish line with, and he's going to take P1 here, coming out of Catalunya for the first race here of our Grand Finals.
Yeah, and there we see the 2-time former G
Any
Challenge
penalties?
champion Boquet finishing in second in our first race here of
Reigning
the
champ
Grand
in second.
Final. And while he did manage to claw his way back into first several
So that's
times
M23,
throughout
that is a
that
fun
race, Mitch looking very clean and maybe just a little bit of endurance on Boquet's part.
The
having to battle
MP44
so
is
hard
not
throughout
like
the
that,
race,
'cause I drove the
playing a
MP44 last
factor
weekend.
there, but
Welcome,
overall,
Andrew.
that grid kind of looking very interesting. Raptors jumping up 3 positions as well. Matt Williams jumping up 5. A lot of movement in our final results of race 1.
Some great consistency coming out of players like Barcode. I'm curious to see as well as we move into our second and third races. We'll have a few more turns, a few more opportunities, I think, in my opinion, for passing potentially these P1 and P2 positions for Barcode. So I'm curious to see if he gets another edge up here as we move deeper into the
Serious
series.
microphone arms.
Yeah, well, it looks like EMEA, I'm so excited, I can't even speak, is going to be another exciting region here with that battle we saw between Boquet and Mitch. So we're going to throw it to a brief commercial break, and then we'll be right back with race number 2. Stay tuned.
I like how the commercial breaks are
Logitech G
Logitech
Pro Racing wheel and pedals are equally at home on desk setups or sim rigs. Here's how to get them hooked up to your desk. Place the wheel unit on your desk and attach the clamp. You don't need to over-tighten. The Pro wheel has
I
11
always
newton
over-tighten
meters
it.
of direct drive torque, so
don't
we
want it to
recommend
move.
using a sturdy desk. The Pro pedals have a flat back edge so you can fit them up against your wall so there's no wandering pedals under heavy braking. Now you're ready to go.
Ready to go. That's the Xbox variant. Alright, that was an interesting race. Because I thought Bouquet was going to run away with this. Thanks, Reed Van Loon. Yeah, let us know if you're considering going to London. I actually don't know where the finals are going to be. Two-time champion. Welcome, Chaya. The Logitech A50X X, Xbox, PC, and PlayStation, and finally you can play all 3 at once at the same time. Interesting about those headphones is, why does the stream not like this? Why does it go like all slow-mo? Like, is it gonna do it again? It can't deal with all these flashing colours. Yeah, sturdy pedals. I need to mount mine down. It's incredible, really. I need to do like a 2 or 3, I don't know how long it's been, but however many years, like recap of the G Pro and all the things I've learned and like little tweaks and things.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to your Logitech McLaren G Challenge Winter Grand Final. We just saw a very exciting race 1 in our EMEA region, and we're going to get ready to get into race 2 here. So taking a look at our qualifying for race number 2, we have RB
Bouquet in third,
finishing in first, ESV Barcode finishing in second, and then TPR Bouquet finishing in third. So a little bit of a shake-up there, but Blue, what do you think of our qualifying
By the way,
going into race
look
2?
how far the top 3 are ahead of P4.
At the end of race 1,
that's a different class.
So it have a little bit more of an increased performance this time. Already contending.
Also, the guy in 16th is 6 seconds off. That must be a mistake. Is it a one? Maybe it's a one shot.
Well, we mentioned that he was potentially mismanaging.
It's a very difficult car to drive
back
this.
at race number 1, and obviously moving over to Silverstone.
There's
here for
4
race 2,
qualifying laps.
Quite a few turns on this track, and ones that slow you down quite heavily as well. So I'm curious to see if that's why we saw him have a slightly slower time and P3
Is this
start
full
this time around, and if we're gonna
Silverstone
see
or
any reflection of
Silverstone
that in the
short?
race. That mid pack as well, still very tight. Expect a lot of action in the race among those racers.
It looks like it's
Yeah,
Silverstone
I've definitely got my eyes
right?
on some of that mid-pack as well. We saw Raptors and Miguel jumping up those spots on the leaderboard of the previous race, and here they are finishing in 6th and 7th.
Is it Silverstone
so we'll
short?
have to
No.
monitor their climb. see if they continue to rise up.
Yeah, there's no village or anything
excited
here.
to get into our second race and see how the grid shakes out. So again, we'll have RBM Mitch starting in pole position, and now it's really just going to be a matter of if he can
this
hold
is a
on
McLaren
to that lead
MP44
this race. And
so I was actually 2 weeks ago, I was the fastest driver in the UK on this car
despite all these
in race days, and even I don't
We'll see
fully
if things
understand
get
it.
messy here. We've got a pretty fast first curve to start things out on Silverstone, so we shouldn't see a jumble up there. It's not until we approach the village coming up here soon where we're going to have that first point of contention. How will Mitch handle it? Does anyone go for the dive on him here? Boquet, by the way, already retaking P2 away from Barcode. Barcode clearly not happy
it's
about
good
that
that you
as
can
he
drop
tries
them.
to swing around the loop here. Unfortunately,
So
ends
when
up
you're
getting
done,
cut off by Boquet. Still
this
seeing
one
that
has
aggression from
swappable
race
batteries.
1, alive and well in his play style now as we move to Silverstone. Obviously, again, we haven't talked about the car yet, but a bit of a step up in power here as well. So coming off of these straightaways, you're going to have a little bit more forgiveness in getting back to your full power this time in comparison to our last race where we had the James Hunt car.
Yeah, and really the real winner between that battle between Boquet and Barcode seems to be Mitch, as he's able to establish that lead with a bit of a cushion in first place. But of course, in race number 1, we saw Boquet able to make up the distance and start to contest that position as well. Lots of other shakeups happening throughout the field, even between P12 and 13. There's some adjustments being made. We have some of those notable drivers, Matt Williams hanging on to P10 right now. Raptors sitting right around P7. Kaiser Miguel also working his way up the leaderboard as we see Matt
that's a bit of
Williams
contact
making
there.
a little climb there.
That's a
up
bit of
to
contact.
P9, and Boquet trying to
Quinton, I'm pretty sure, is top level GT. In fact, I think he's underage
right now
GT.
as he's having to
Belgium,
try to
isn't he?
both attack and defend against
all
these
over that
two
curve.
drivers.
A tough position for sure to him be inside of. Barcode seeming to drop off a little bit here as we start to round back around for our second lap. We'll keep an eye on that one, of course.
I just remembered that as this is a Logitech stream, I probably should wear my Logitech headphones.
Utilizing
Just
the
bear with me.
relatively slower nature of the village portion of this track that we're going through right now here. Really trying to push hard as we transition from that into the loop and then swing out through our final turn in that area as well here, but just not able to capitalize on it fully yet. However, look at the exit that Boquet got.
There we go. Now more Logitech up.
Right on the heels of
Now
Mitch.
it looks
Just doesn't
right.
really have an angle to
Given
swing
we're giving
wide
away a
for,
G-Pro.
as he unfortunately would open himself up too heavily to a move from Barcode. So opts to play
You reminded me,
defensively
Ruud van
this
Loob.
time around. Works out for him, and it's a good thing
Should I
too, because
donate
you can see
500?
Barcode there
500?
to swing right
I
behind
mean,
him,
if you
just a
want
couple
to,
feet behind.
is there a
Barcode
shout
looking
out?
to make that move, and Mitch doing a great job of
Look at
defending
the lock
as
there.
well.
It's like- looks like
as
Max.
Boquet also looking a little bit more stable here on this race, despite all this pressure from behind that Barcode is
I just wonder
applying.
if Boquet isn't going to win this.
The rest of that field kind of stable for the time being, as all the heat seems to be here
Outside
in
of
our
Stowe, I
pole
reckon, all
positions.
the way around
But
the
here
outside.
comes
Look at track
Boquet.
limits.
Can he find the exit? No, is actually going to drop back behind Barcode as a result of that
Bro
move.
just lost his
Exactly
position
what
by
I
doing that.
mentioned him being worried about on an earlier part of this lap too, not wanting to go too wide and make a move, and if it doesn't go his way, leaves himself open to an overtake from Barcode. What do we see happen
Barcode
here?
going
Now
for the
coming around
win.
one of the final turns
This
on
is
lap
short.
two, the exact
No, this
scenario
is full
plays out, and
Silverstone.
Barcode,
This is full
he's just going
Silverstone.
to keep it going, already challenging for Mitch, goes for a tight curve here on the first turn, and he's actually going to be able to take P1, but look at this.
Look at this,
triple
3 wide,
Now
3 wide,
Boquet
oh no!
getting right into it here as we approach the loop.
Oh,
Not
someone's
letting
gone straight
anyone
off.
get away from his P2 there, but he'll still end up getting bounced back P3.
Someone just went straight off. It might be the Johan again.
Back down to P4 even. So that's going to continue to be a tight race in this mid-pack as we focus on that for a second. Also very close between quite a few of these
those
racers
curbs.
right now.
Yeah, we see a lot of battles happening in those tough positions.
So where is
Barcode,
Boquet?
though, manages
He's still
to
there.
find P1. Mitch also behind by a decent chunk of time, so he'll have to battle his way back up. Boquet again also now trying to climb his way into those higher positions as this battle between first, second, and
pretty
third
difficult car to
continues
drive. It's not-
to wage on. We've got our
On the
other
brakes,
kind
it's
of
like,
notable drivers
if you
here.
apply any
Raptors,
lock, you lose the
Kaiser
braking.
Miguel, Matt
So
Williams,
if you do a dive bomb and
ZR
then
Villa, all
just-
kind of hanging out in that mid pack as these clusters
Cars get
continue
damage on
to
Forza as well,
duke
like visible
it out.
damage.
Mitch
Scratching
now
and
just
stuff.
looking to regain some of the track here on Barcode. Boquet as well, trying to just tighten this one up so that moves can be made. As for the time being, some of this dust has a brief chance to settle before perhaps another battle emerges early on here on Silverstone.
So Barco,
see again that P7 through roughly P11
Quinton.
position.
Maybe Quinton will get faster in the course of
this time it's Villa kind of leading that pack, where I believe it was Matt Williams doing most of the leading there in the last race. Very defensive positioning being taken by whoever is in front of that, so that's going to frustrate some of those drivers directly behind that, as they're just not able to work their way towards it. You can see there, as we were looking at Mitch, there's been a bit of contact throughout the course of this race too. I think he ended up bumping Barcoder Mitch at one point earlier on this track here. So these racers once again fighting heavily.
I wonder if Bouquet
will
work together with Mitch here.
Major turn over there towards the village too.
Yep, position's kind of steady here for the time being, but undoubtedly we'll see some of these drivers catch up. A little wobbly there from Mitch, but trying to gain some time.
I think in the G Challenge they all use different assists as well. Like some of them use TC, some of them use ABS someday.
Bouquet as well. Just trying to clean things up here in race number 2 on Silverstone. And Bouquet, you know, this is maybe a real test of his driving as well, because typically we've seen him, you know, sitting quite comfortably in P1, out ahead of the pack, really relying on his individual speed. And while he certainly, you know, had some battles, this is probably one of the hardest tests we've seen for him in terms of just skill as a driver. These tracks, these new racers really throwing everything at him.
It's really see up now.
What he has here is another cluster towards the back of the pack, dukes it out.
That's
everyone fighting for position here again, because above P10, each individual place earns a little bit more cash. So
they're playing for money.
These battles kind of intense in every position out here on the grid.
You could see an example of what we were talking about there before as well. That was our P7 through P11 pack right there. Matt Williams trying to fight hard for leading position, but just squirms a little bit too much, drifts off into the sand, and he quickly
I wonder if Bouquet is actually kind of like not pushing it too hard.
They're going to push past him. We'll see him drop down to P11 for now. And now it's up to Villa once again to see if he can continue to push forward as the leader of that section of the grid right now.
Yep, and 1, 2, and 3, these intervals being cut down as Bouquet slowly starts to creep his way up towards Mitch, trying to find room to make a move through these turns. See if he can just set himself up to climb his way up that leaderboard. Again, you know, an additional race after this one, but after Bouquet finished in second,
if
obviously
Bouquet finishes
doesn't
third
want to give
is
any
he basically
room
out
for error when it comes
P2
to
into
those
P3
point totals. Fastest lap again, awarding that additional.
You don't want to get
point,
a reputation as like you're only good for time
trial.
trial.
Atypical in terms of performance from what we've seen out of him, but we know his skill as a driver. We know what he is capable of. It's just about him kind of making those opportunities for himself. But Mitch and Barco putting on a show as well.
That's going to slow them both down
here today as those positions continue to jockey back and forth. Kaiser Miguel also making a move above Raptors there, as all of these individual little battles seem to be heating up.
A risky move there from Mitch to try and overtake where he did over, I believe, by the farm curve. Ends up working out, but if he had gotten cut off, it could have had major ramifications for him, potentially pushing him back behind Bouquet.
Doesn't kill you though, these slides, because Forza
Barcode, I suppose,
doesn't mind the slidiness.
Or just kind of let it
May as well
happen.
risk it.
And as a result, Mitch now retakes P1, is going to shoot ahead here, heading through lap 6. Barcode, at the moment, no way to immediately contest that. And looking at the track Formula 2, probably not going to see an opportunity for that until at least we round back around towards the front once again and start lap 7 here. So nice place from Mitch, keeping it consistent, and more importantly than anything else, keeping himself in front of the pack here. But as you can see, Barcode not too far behind as we navigate our way through. I believe that was just Maggots who went through a second ago too. Very, very tough course through the track. Lots of maneuvering at high speeds.
You can't really hang it on the outside. I think the camber's too
if they're having
adverse.
to also pay attention to, well, this Barcode making another pass attempt. He has to go
that's a hell of a move if he does it.
And still not enough power
if he does
because
it,
he got
if he does
so
it,
wide. Mitch holds on, bullies Barcode nearly into the grass right there.
That would have been a great
as we come back around the final curve here on Club, heading up through the Hamilton Straight.
Yep, Barcode being forced to kind of get in line
that would have
there
been
by
insane.
Some great driving out of Mitch. And I think the second part of what you kind of mentioned, one is the consistency we've seen out of Mitch here, making a big difference, but also the patience. I feel like in that first race, we kind of saw Boquet maybe at times that driving style feeling a little bit impatient, maybe trying to force a move when it wasn't there, and perhaps sometime costing him some time. But Mitch seemingly just kind of waiting for the opportunity to strike and staying consistent while also being patient has allowed him to work his way back into P1 and put the pressure on both Boquet and Barcode to find another move, another opening, or an opportunity here.
Some shaky
a little bit of development going on in our mid-pack there as well.
Is it me or is it
just a moment, we saw Brulaire finally able to challenge out Villa. Brulaire was actually one of our highlight players coming from the Playdays event that we did at the in-store activation as well. He was one of our top players from that. He's competing quite nicely here in the grand finals as well, but still struggling. Looks like he succeeded again in getting past Villa, trying to break away from that mid-pack that's been jammed up for pretty much the whole race at this point.
Yeah, and that's super exciting to see right throughout, this competition. We kind of talked about it at the beginning, but there's ways to even qualify for this in store. So there's both online qualifying through the Forza Rivals playlist as Boquet applies some pressure there, but is forced to back off ever so slightly. And then, yeah, you can qualify in person in one of our stores through those race days activations, which are now taking place, across the globe, really. And of course, you can check out the Logitech gchallenge.com website to see where those might be taking place. But yeah, really awesome.
I think it's one of the emojis someone's put in the chat.
In-store, in-person qualifiers performing so well in the grand finals here. But the story continues as P1, 2, and 3 battle out. Boquet just trying to find one of these opportunities as we near the final few laps of our second race. Not too much movement here as Mitch has managed to hold steady in first. Barcode continues to squirm for that P1, and Boquet really just kind of letting them battle it out.
Come on,
trying
Boquet.
to find perhaps a move that can be made from one of these perhaps forced errors that might be coming out of either Mitch or Barcode.
Yeah, given his aggressive play style, this might be a nice shift for him and kind of like, let me hang back. Let's
Racing looks good, can't find livery style. I suspect there's been one person who's made all the liveries.
Very risky. There is quite a bit of validity in his strategy of like, I'm just going to whip it into these corners here. Bar none the risk of potentially spinning out that we're seeing from him a couple of times here. It's only 10 laps of these races are, so that's very much hot or not style of racing. So absolutely see the justification for his play style, but at the moment just really struggling to close that final gap. Coming up on some slower turns here as we round about towards lap 9 in a second, and he'll get another chance to do so as we work our way up towards the village. Very curious to see if he can finally capitalize on this.
Because he was doing this a bit earlier, wasn't it?
P3 is Barcode still fighting heavily against Mitch for P1 as well. They've been neck and neck for quite some time now.
Yeah, Mitch definitely being, tested here as well. All of these 3 positions.
I'll tell you what, I'm just going to make a quick change.
Really everything they've got, whether it's way up the leaderboard, and Boquet still trying to find
should
some
be back
moves
now
here.
and smoother.
Barcode maybe flirting with the grass just a bit.
Now I've made a change.
Manages to hold
Let
on.
me know if that's smoother.
These 3 still holding their positions.
Another nice move from Brulaire that we got to see a few seconds back there. That was our bright yellow livery as he was once again able to work his way past Villa, give himself a little bit more of an opening to try and
not
work
that far
up towards
behind,
P6. Given the
I think this could be the end of the championship run.
Not going to see that challenge.
There's big money on the line.
There's a mistake from Raptors.
Fingers crossed that is smooth
still
enough.
Impressive passing given he's trying to fight his way out of that mid-pack that's been jammed up for quite some time. Mitch, though, still the key of consistency here as we round our way forward, but it looks like Barcode lost quite a bit of momentum coming out of Maggots a couple of seconds ago. That's going to finally cost him P2 as Boquet now back in control of that top placement yet again.
Yeah, and a huge opening for Boquet here. If he can hold on to this P2 position,
can Boquet even win it from here?
Make a difference going into that final race.
2 P2s.
When the final points are tallied, we will have to see where the
Mitch
dust settles there. But
one hand
Mitch
on the trophy,
being so quick and so consistent, it's really going to test Boquet and what he can pull off there. Matt Williams, again, another driver we've seen throughout the EMEA region, putting on a good defense against those other drivers. And Boquet here still managing to hold on to P2 as we close out this second race.
Big turns coming up here as well as these players try to capitalize on their final opportunities to pass. coming into the final straights here at lap 10. Mitch still
Last
far
lap.
ahead of Boquet, not looking like we're going to be able to see him close that gap necessarily, but the mid-pack still very much up in the air. Matt Williams, again,
That's
who we
some
saw fall back
ghosting.
a little bit earlier in this race due to some slightly over-aggressive driving, trying to control the mid-pack there. He'll at least be able to work his way past Johan. Johan with just a courtesy ghost to make sure he doesn't mess up his
Oh, is it getting laps?
his proponent there just behind him, so he'll continue to move past that, at least reclaim one more position. But as we're coming around towards those final 2 turns or so outside of Maggots, it is
Nice
still
one,
Mitch
McGurkin. Good luck.
leading the charge here in P1.
Best of luck.
Unless there's a major mistake made here or a heroic act of racing out of Boquet or Barcode, it is looking like, once again, Mitch is going to be able to claim P1 for the second time here in this series.
Yeah, just great stuff that we've seen out of RB and Mitch throughout our first 2 races. Again, like you mentioned, that consistency
There we go.
and that patience as well. Just not
Bang,
really
bang,
trying
bang.
to force the issue,
2
waiting
wins
for
for
those
Mitch.
opportunities to arise, and then
Oh, did I get the
driving
wrong finish line?
extremely clean throughout the race
No.
as Boquet
I have done
finishes
that.
P2. Barcode as well. We saw some great things out of him throughout this second race, but really
Barcode,
Boquet
yeah.
with the nice overtake, finishing P2. But all 3 of these drivers really making for a great grand finals in our EMEA region.
Absolutely very competitive, especially among our top 2 as well there. And as you mentioned, that 3rd place finish, just losing a little bit too much speed on
Let's
the
see what the
final lap.
championship
Oftentimes,
standings
sim
look
racing
like.
is a test of a player's consistency, and that's where we saw it fall off. Boquet just waiting for that opportunity, and he finally got it to at least reclaim his P2 finish.
Yeah, and you know, with the way that final grid kind of shook out, with Mitch in first, Boquet in second, Barcode there, that main battle. But we have, you know, names like Kaiser Miguel, Quinton, Raptors, Villa, kind of the usual suspects.
Wonder if it will
of
kick
that
off in the last
mid-pack,
race,
all
'cause the
still,
money's on the line.
battling for those positions. Like we kind of mentioned, you know, P10 and above each have an incremental increase in dollar amount. So each one of those positions, you know, getting you a little bit more at the end of the day. But of course, the big grand prize, that first place finish after our upcoming race, is also going to win that VIP race experience. So with race 2 in the books, we are going to throw it to a brief commercial break.
Here we go.
And then we'll be back with
Let me guess.
our final race of the
Let me
EMEA
guess.
region. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
It's Rich.
Logitech G Pro
Yes!
Racing Wheel and Pedals are equally at home on desk setups or
By the end of the stream,
Here's
we're
how to
going
get them hooked up
be
your
able to
desk.
recite.
Place the wheel unit on your desk.
Not too
and
hard,
attach the
not too
clamp.
tight.
You don't need to over tighten. The Pro Wheel has 11 Newton meters of direct drive torque, so we recommend
Sturdy
using
desk.
a sturdy
Sturdy
desk. The Pro pedals have a flat back edge, so you can fit them up against your wall, so there's no wandering pedals under heavy braking.
Breaking.
Now you're ready to
To
go.
ready to go. Whoa. Is that a CGI, the way they move those pedals? Or is it like, how do they record that? Interesting to know. Need to grease my pedals probably. It's time for a re-greasing. Ah, the old Astro A50X on PlayStation, PS, PC and PlayStation at once. So you plug all of them in, I guess. And then you just choose like, oh, I'm gonna go on whatever. See a lot of streamers with those headphones. Broadcast quality microphone. Can you have it connected to 2 Bluetooth devices then? Some serious gaming going on there.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome
Final
back
race?
to your
EMEA.
Logitech McLaren G Challenge Grand Final. We're taking a look at our EMEA region. We've got one race left before
Forza.
we crown a winner. And Blue, it's been an exciting couple of races so far, so definitely looking forward to race 3. We've got Boquet.
Oh, Boquet on pole.
Top of our qualifying
Boquet
laps
on
with
pole.
Mitch in second.
And this is the
Barcode in
McLaren
third
P1,
as they
which is really tricky to
battle it
drive
out. But
at this
what are your
circuit.
thoughts going into our final race here?
I'm excited to see what Boquet's
Boquet's
able
a
to do
second
here, right?
quicker.
Because I think the track favors him quite heavily. The car
Boquet's
favors
a
him quite
second a
heavily
lap
too.
quicker
Just
in
like our former
qualifying.
race, it's
That's
another little
mad.
step up in horsepower.
And
for him,
Quintin
about
did not
1,000 or so
finish.
now, going over to the P1,
What's
but
going on
still
here?
very much the same type of driving, just given where the origins of the P1 came from. The track as well. A lot of emphasis here is going to be on maintaining your speed around the corners, but they're nowhere near as harsh as we saw on our
Look at
first
the
two
spread on
tracks. I
lap
think that's going to
times.
give Boquet
I
a
think it
little
shows
bit
how
more
difficult the car
power.
is.
Will it be enough to contest for the actual championship here? That's now the question, though, as Mitch has been pretty much the key of has been the picture of consistency throughout these two races previously.
Yeah, going to be exciting. And again, some of our familiar faces, Kaiser, Brulaire, Raptors, all kind of working their way up, continuing to improve race after race. So I'm sure it's going to be an exciting third race here for our grand final. I think this car, especially really starts to lean towards Boquet's comfort zone. Now it'll just be a question of
what is that? Is that a headset?
does the rest
or a wheel?
of the grid fall in line to see who is going to be our EMEA G Challenge champion.
What G?
We're going wide here to start as we come around our first turn.
I imagine Boquet is just going to run away with this.
Right into the face of his opponent to try and contest for P1. Won't be successful in it just yet. Like I said before, a lot of power coming out of these P1s now, so players do have to be careful on exiting their turns to make sure they don't give it too much, end up spinning out here a little bit too. You can see him flirting with the dirt a bit as they start to work their way through some of the trickier sections of this track. That one being an example of it right there, the inner loop or the bus stop.
It's quite understeery, like you have to
a real check here to make sure our drivers are paying attention before they enter the later part of the track that we're coming down to now, called the boot, for kind of obvious reasons if you look at the map there.
It was a headset.
Right.
Yeah, and really, taking a look at our timing tower, I just love what we're
seeing,
right?
It's the one they showed, the evolution of that.
Our P1, 2, and 3 is kind of what we've seen in our previous races. Love the performance. It's Brulaire sitting in P4, Kaiser, Miguel, P5, Villa in 6th, Raptors in 7th. So again, just consistency being rewarded throughout our EMEA region as those drivers continue to perform better and better track.
Mitch is all over Boquet.
But of course, the real story
you
here
can see
is
what I mean. Like
a champion.
You have to kind of keep getting it to turn.
What it takes
to
earn enough points in this final race with P1 perhaps the fastest lap, but even more so, Mitch's consistency. Will he place in a way that allows Boquet to claim his third championship in a row, or will Mitch have something to say about that here today?
Where's Quintin?
It's looking good for Boquet right now, coming out of lap number 1. Smooth, consistent driving, but the same can be said for Mitch. So it's all going to be in keeping that going as we move deeper and deeper into this race right here. Another thing to note too, much shorter track in terms of the overall width that we're working with here. So track limits are very important to pay attention to, especially as you get within close contention of another racer here. You don't want to be pushing.
Yeah, I do have the regular Astra
850, yourself, which could cost you bigly at the end of the race.
But I just have one connection in it.
Yeah, Boquet still sitting in first. Mitch in second.
The reason why the 850 is good is because it goes into the mixer.
Of Barcode here. You're really rooting for him to overtake Mitch and try to get him out of the top 3 to give yourself really the best chance at a W.
I'm surprised. Look at that style.
Of course, also clawing his
of the car ahead.
Up through the ranks.
Everything is so different.
Mitch continuing to hang on. Little dust being kicked up here as P1, 2,
aggressive
and 3
line in there as well.
Start to space out. More breathing room for Boquet, but more.
What's going with the stream lagging this evening? It was lagging before, but it shouldn't be lagging now.
Just to sit in P2.
It shouldn't be lagging now. I've only dropped 1 frame since I restarted.
His P1. And
basically, I was running at 4K before, just bumped
coming into effect there as a bit of a cluster going in through those previous turns starts to even out now.
So there were problems on my side earlier.
Of our pack, but lots of action going on through Watkins Glen here today.
We can see here, I think this is Johan, indeed it is, trying to battle back for the position he just lost over there towards the toe of the boot.
That's
went
insane.
A little bit too wide there.
If you get that done,
just a sliver if you get that done, ends up costing him that first position that he was in. He'll fall back, has not been able to reclaim that as of yet, but as we focus more on the front
I think Boket's going to win this.
Boket still leading the charge, and
so what happens
time over
if Mitch
here as we
gets a 1-1-2? Mitch just wins the whole thing.
Mitch needing to see a little bit
so
more
Mitch
of
just needs a PT.
him, but important to note, he still has those nice, safe victories for the first 2 tracks.
Doesn't Boket need to push Mitch back?
For outright P1 finish here, not as strong for him as it is for Boket.
Is that the strategy?
Yeah, doesn't have to take as many risks here in this third and final race, which is probably a nice, you know, mental clarity, mental moment for Mitch there, as Boket not only has to hold on to P1, but hope that there's some overtakes in P2 and P3 to really start to open the door for him to finish in first at the end of our 3 races. Mitch continuing just to hold steady here, stays consistent, and yeah, there's some decent space here between Boket, Mitch, and Barcode, with things tightening up in our 4th, 5th, and 6th positions.
These players get a little bit slippy. You do have to give some credit to Brulaire, who's actually had another improvement over the previous maps.
Yeah, Brulaire's just been getting faster every race. Fair play.
So a nice play from him. But important to note, as we saw about a minute or so ago, Miguel right on his heels. They're only 0.2 seconds behind, roughly. So Brulaire having to fight pretty heavily for that. We did see him slipping a bit on those turns. So that's a big question if he's going to be able to maintain P4 or potentially push further than that. The challenge Barcode, as he too is hanging quite a bit.
So if I was Boket now, I would be holding Mitch up.
Challenge for P2 at this stage.
Yep, Raptors
and Villa
also exchanging positions there, right behind Kaiser. Lots of battles going back.
If you want to win the whole thing.
4th, as our drivers looking more and more comfortable here as the day progresses. Mitch still holding steady in P2. Barcode again dropping.
You would switch more to first person. Yeah, I would as well. I would switch
exchanging positions,
especially when there's a car following through chicane.
Really kind of been right there.
That's
right
a bit more sim racing,
podium,
isn't it?
But still, some great performances from our mid-pack here today, despite all the speed and battling we've seen out of our top 3 so far.
Storyline is really going to continue here as we race around. Like I was saying before, this track, more so than anything, is about maintaining as much speed as possible through the curves, especially with a high-powered car like the P1 here. That boot is going to be a great area to try and retake some control as you can capitalize on those.
But the P1 is a very unusual
that final turn as well, coming back around towards the finishing line.
Area on the back as well.
Test of how much speed you can maintain and how far you can push it to try and regain any sort of positioning against the racers in front of you.
Yeah, and we've seen, you know, even through qualifying, Boket finishing in first there, so we know he's got the speed, and really I think this is what our qualifying kind of was, right? Boket in first, Mitch in second, Barcode in third, so not much of a surprise. Perhaps the surprise is that they are in such a close and intense battle as we've seen in
I think one of the guys qualified from being in store.
You know, they're content to kind of space this out, play
whoever
patient,
was fast
really
in store,
push for too much, or I'm sure if you're Barcode or Mitch, you're looking for those overtakes. Especially Barcode. You know,
so someone just walked into their local shop and did a lap
money from cool. P3 to P2 at the end of the day. But you know, looking at the numbers battle throughout the course of these 3 races, Mitch probably has crunched the numbers, knows that he just needs to hold on to P2 to kind of lock in the day. So Boket hoping for some action behind him, but Mitch, seeing the distance between him and Barcode, really just needs to, you know, play safe, hang tight. And,
Mitch is loving this right now. If you're Mitch, you're about to earn a load of money.
To lock this one
surely.
In.
Nice smooth run so far. But really, our front 3 runners here, Barcode unfortunately is a bit too far behind to try and get in a position to contest for a higher podium finish. Miguel as well could have some opportunities to try and catch up to Barcode here, but that's going to rely on a slip up from Barcode. Speaking of which, he goes a little bit into the grass, but
there's the slip up.
A bit of drift there, actually. Good moves from Barcode to maintain it at least as he works his way around the curve, but that'll cost him a bit more
Maybe
time.
the commentary is not quite synced,
5-second disadvantage behind Mitch now, so those 2 well in front of the rest of the pack after that kind of exchange of events from Barcode right there.
Yeah, and you know, if you're Barcode, you're kind of thanking your lucky stars there that you were able to hang on despite the slipping. But Boket, if you're kind of aware of that action, you're kind of hoping that Barcode can catch up to Mitch and start to battle for that P2 position, because that's really going to open the door for Boket to potentially clinch a victory and another grand finals crowning here. But, you know, with Barcode kind of extending that,
Barcode's pushing
the slipperiness of that previous action, going to be harder for him to work his way up as we reach the fifth lap here on our
I don't know.
race.
Would you showboat on the exit chicane like that?
Clean racing so far, and really all departments here. No one needing to get too dirty to try and fight for their positioning. It's another nature of just this track.
Just wonder, like, what does Boquet do?
Well, so we'll continue to see a solid
Unless there's been some points for fastest lap.
And Mitch Boquet again, just
he's qualified the second fast here.
He's sitting back there praying for someone to get in the way of Mitch, maybe bump him down a position or two, so he still has an opportunity to retake on points at the end of this circuit. But just not happening at this point due to what we're seeing from those P3 through 5 or so. Not enough contention, and unfortunately, we did see Brulaire drop his P4 to Kaiser Miguel about a lap or so ago as well. So he's now had to drop back a position.
Will we see anyone getting laps?
Reclaim it from him and make sure that his placements are still staying consistent as well.
Yeah, we could see some pressure being applied to Barcode from Kaiser here as he continues to drive clean.
I think was it $3,000 for the
position.
leader?
Some other action happens.
Imagine the pressure of driving and you're like, oh,
Villa,
I don't mess this up, I get $3,000.
All kind of putting on a nice performance. Matt Williams, P10 right now, kind of just trying to stay above water.
Maybe it's showboating a little bit.
And Barcode just continuing to hang on, just content in this P3, keeping some distance between him and Kaiser, and not really trying to contest too heavily against Mitch here, who's out in front again.
Swing as we come back around through those final few curves here, working our way outside of the boot.
I wonder if the handbrake is good for this car.
Coming back around for that final curve where you're going to need to make sure
on your
maintain speed over everything else.
I think it depends where you live. In the UK, I'm pretty sure it's tax-free.
Big improvement over what
in America,
really more so in the first race.
Taxes,
the second race, he had a pretty clean time
but
there
I don't know
too.
For sure.
But now here on our third and final circuit at Watkins Glen, we're really seeing him come into full power here and just taking complete control of not only the circuit but the entire grid here, as he has barely been challenged for P1. But a little bit further back, P6 and 5, close contention. So
it might depend where
tries
the
to get aggressive on the 90, but is not going to be able to take it. He's forced back a little bit further here. That's going to be a nice defense.
I think in the US, if you win a big prize, they recommend you think about moving
earlier in this race.
to a state
losing P4 a couple moments ago to Miguel.
Yeah, love what we're seeing out of Brulaire, again, qualifying in person, in store through those race days activations. And, you know, previously, actually, in a prior season, Boquet even qualified through there, kind of skipping the online time trials portion. So, you know, it's been interesting to see how certain drivers approach those multiple ways to qualify. But for someone like Brulaire to come in through race days and put on such a clean performance, really awesome to see that in our EMEA Grand Final. And of course, we have Mitch still clean.
Multiple considerations.
P2, P1,
if you win a prize,
3,
if you're lucky enough to win a prize.
Keeping it clean, keeping it tight here, trying to hold out on these positions as Barcode drops back a little bit in the timing as well. So probably not going to see an overtake there unless Mitch really slips up in these final closing laps.
So funny seeing the other seat.
Final 3 laps, in fact, here in just a moment. We're about to cross into lap 8, and so very much the same storyline.
Racing, GT racing like this, where your engineer sits in the other seat, and your engineer has like a laptop.
Heavily contested between each other. We got a lot of jumbling going on there. Curious to see who winds up on top of that pack, as it's been a pretty major storyline here, is who's blocking who in the mid pack here so far throughout the EMEA finals. But once again, into full lap 8 now. No changes for our front runners, and it only seems like those two specifically are gaining more and more.
That's got to be a pen, surely.
6.5 seconds nearly.
Surely that's got to be a pen
at this point. So some beautiful consistency coming out of both of our front runners here in the European region.
Yeah, Boquet really kind of reaching peak performance here on this final race, and it's really just going to come down to those point totals.
I think having two Formula cars
and
one
fastest lap
hypercar
bonus points, we'll see
probably helped a lot of Formula drivers.
Settles between all of these drivers. But in terms of race 3, top 3 feeling pretty solidified, but like you mentioned, continuing to battle it out in that
we'll see this angle a little bit more
back as Johan trying to close the gap, make a move on Matt Williams as we check in with Barcode, who continues to hang on to P3 with Kaiser Miguel kind of flirting in and out of being able to contest that position.
The toe there continuing to give Barcode some problems. I think we saw a similar event happen a few laps back as well. That really opened up the gap between him and Mitch. A bit cleaner working his way around the heel this time.
Maybe I've missed something with the penalties.
But that's obviously going to be Miguel sitting
yeah,
just a
someone mentioned in the commentary FRR, I think Forza race regulations.
If Barcode slips too heavily
so I don't know if they're on or off.
That seems like he's keeping it together at the very least. And while that lead may be shrinking, it's at least being preserved here.
That's why I spun
just 2 laps to go now.
They may have turned it off
Kaiser again,
and then
like you
do
mentioned,
manual
just waiting for
investigation.
that opportunity, seeing if Barcode slips up
Barcode
just enough to
looks like he's going to end
make
up in
a
the
move
wall.
or close that gap for our P3 position going into our final couple of laps here. We'll have to see if, again, Kaiser can make that move. Brulaire, again, sitting about 4 seconds back behind Kaiser.
B's
so
here.
it's kind of spreading
Barcode,
out with a few players still contesting over these positions.
This is
Mitch
Emea.
still kind of floating in second place. P2, enough distance between both Boquet and Barcode that he doesn't have to worry about too much other than
taking a
clean
lot of that
racing to close out the day.
Mitch happy to be there, probably just working on trying to maintain fastest lap time at this point too, more than anything, so he can get that additional point, just make his odds that much more secure.
There is a fast lap point.
Overall P1 at the end of this series, and he is looking quite confident to potentially do so here with the things are looking. One more lap still to go though. It's still racing. Anything can happen here, so we'll wait and see.
Fastest lap point.
We could see that slip up.
So there have been fastest lap points, and Boquet has been on pole last 2, hasn't he?
From that type of performance,
so maybe there's a qualifying point as well.
Third and final race on Watkins Glen is, like I've said a few times now, he's been the picture of consistency here in this third race.
Yeah, you just kind of never know what's going through their head, right? That mental game obviously playing a factor, maybe white knuckling a bit too hard. You never know what could happen, but just got to stay locked in, stay in the zone, close this one out as that finish line and final lap are ever approaching. We do have some close battles, some players still trying to work their way up into higher positions. Specifically, we see Raptors right on the heels of Brulaire, and again, Matt Williams.
All right, any funny business now?
Johan kind of close on that higher position to just fight their way up just a little bit.
Anything interesting?
We'll see
in terms
if anything
of
else
strategy,
will change up, specifically inside of that mid-pack. But
surely Boquet's got the fastest lap here
at this point. Pack markers as well, pretty far paced out, so no change is going to be occurring there towards the back of the pack. It seems like overall the grid has a nice even spread among it here, and it looks like these placements more than likely will stay relatively the same heading into the final few minutes of the race here, and specifically for our front runners, the final few seconds as we enter the boot for the final time here. Mitch and Boquet still leading that charge, with Boquet again an incredibly consistent race here to finish out the EMEA finals.
Reminds me of when I did my racing in Spain.
Over these last few seconds.
Yeah,
like,
a bit of a breather for our P1, 2, and 3.
Doing all the practicing, going on and racing.
Those crazy battles and intense moments we saw in race 1 and 2, they get a little bit of a breather here and just have to focus on that clean driving in our final race as the rest of the pack continues to battle. But like you had mentioned, nearing the end here, we do see a couple more battles happening towards that back and mid pack.
Tilo going to try to push ahead here in the final few seconds, but it's only a momentary take of P8. Munz takes it right back away from him, but that race actually not finishing up just yet.
All right, let's see what happens with
we
the
do have
leaderboard
P1 and P2 heading across the finish line.
I feel like Boquet would have backed it up.
Confident win here in the third and final race of our tournament. Mitch, however, right behind him in second, and with those 2 P1 victories from the first and second race, he's still going to be looking good to potentially lead things out. We'll figure that out in just a moment here.
Yeah,
we will show you those point totals momentarily,
Let's
but
see.
just kind of talking about where that race
if you've been watching, who's going to win, Boquet or Mitch?
Back throughout the day, despite maybe a rocky race 1 and
I
race
feel like
2,
Boquet would have backed it up
in first, nice and clean in our third race, kind of showing off what we've come to expect from him out of our previous 2 grand finals, where he was the victor. But of course, Mitch finishing in second, Barcode in third, and then Blue, anything else kind of to touch on here? I think, Brulaire we see, but what kind of jumps out at you of our race 3 results here?
I think Brulaire really just the highlight more than anything. Matt Williams unfortunately falling down a couple of places from where we've generally seen him finishing out, but Brulaire, props to him finally
great to know the drivers,
breaking his way out of that mid pack there behind like P6 and P7, finally able to end up with a top 5 finish. Would like to see the P4, but Miguel as well has been very consistent in finishing around that P4, so that was always going to be a tough challenger for him. Props for the progress that he was able to make regardless.
McGregor says Mitch.
Yeah. So with those race 3 results being locked in, I think we're ready to
think it'll be very controversial
standings, and it
so
is
Mitch has one.
RBM Mitch as your new G
Welcome to
Challenge
congratulations
champion,
to Mitch,
toppling 2-time winner Boquet with 73
takes the money
points to Boquet's 70. Barcode finishing in 3rd, and then the rest of the grid kind of totaling their way down. But what a race between our top 3 players here today.
And a very close finish, goes right back to what we were talking about with Mitch, kind of just fully content to hang out in
point
P2
system
for that final race. He knew the points were
how the
probably
point
going to play in his
system
favor
works.
As long as nothing crazy happened and he got bullied
Can't
out of
be
P2
25 points for a
Barcode.
win.
As soon as he was dead set ahead of him by like 5 or 6 seconds, it was more about maintaining it than anything else. So masterful play there from Mitch to have a nice smooth finish.
It must be. Is it 25 points to win? And he got fast
big
laps?
Props to all of our drivers here in that EMEA region. Big congratulations to RBM Mitch, who is your new G Challenge champion, and Boquet. Of course, some amazing driving, some amazing battles throughout all of this top 3, including Barcode. So really an amazing region to watch, a really fun set of races, and that is just our first region here today. So we are going to throw it to a brief commercial break, and then we will be back with the rest of your G Challenge Grand Finals. So stay tuned.
Okay, I've got this.
Logitech G Pro Racing wheel and pedals are equally at home on desk or Simrigs. Here's how to get them hooked up to your desk. Place the wheel unit on your desk and attach the clamps. You don't need to overtighten.
Not very
good. The wheel has 11 Newton meters of direct drive torque, so we recommend using a sturdy desk. The Pro pedals have a flat back edge, so you can fit them up against your wall, so there's no wandering.
Lisa's great driving by Barcode. Yeah, all the drifting.
Now you're ready to go.
Getting the back end out. Do you think we could have put one of our adverts in here? We could have done an advert. Taken a slot. Drive to win. Mashers Part 1. I don't understand how they get these shots. Like, they look so good. I'm not sure about the commentaries, we read one word at a time. Everyone's got their own style. Sometimes a teleprompter, if you read off a teleprompter, it's not... teleprompter, sometimes you need to play for time. So having your own cadence can really help you when you come to the end of a sentence. You can tell when YouTubers are using prompters, because they're very glossy-eyed and like... do you know what I mean? You can just kind of tell. I'm just gonna run out after this and buy an Astro A50X after all this. Right, what happens now?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to your Logitech McLaren G Challenge Grand Finals broadcast. We just saw some exciting races and crowned a new champion in EMEA, but we've got a couple other regions to recap for you before we get into our final NA races, and that, of course, is our APAC and LATAM regions. Now, we saw some quite exciting action kind of across the board throughout both of these regions, but just wanted to recap some of the highlights, show you a few of those racing moments, and of course announce our winners for those
Do you think the other
regions.
guy's thinking it as well?
In APAC, we did see some familiar faces, some players
How come the other dude
returning,
doesn't get to do some of these?
Yeah, a lot of those battles kind of happening throughout this region with returning drivers like Lags, who we've seen previously, and Kireth. So, you know, throughout these races, again, like we had kind of highlighted, like we had mentioned before, with these cars, with these tracks, kind of an escalating difficulty, but definitely saw some exciting action with, again, you know, a lot of
so these are some highlights.
those
Is this
P1
Apac?
and P2 positions, like you're seeing right here between Lags and Kireth. THR also having some good representation across the board.
So it looks like they celebrate the teams.
And a lot of that kind of jockeying for position, especially early on, as we see
It's such a fun car to drive this.
driving,
It's super fun.
and a lot of battles kind of happening
I'll take that.
throughout our APAC side of the G Challenge.
The storyline for Lags was very interesting too.
Oh
as he
my
had to
God.
fight for P1
Whoa.
finishes in the large majority of these races as well.
APAC,
Our
lads.
second place ultimate finisher here, Kireth, ultimately had to actually out-qualified him on a couple of these. The one we just saw there, of course, starting
So
out with
Lags is
Catalunya,
gonna
and then
win.
I believe for our third race, which we'll highlight in a few minutes here, he actually managed to out-qualify his opponent. So Lags having
missed qualifying. What was the green car?
for P1, but as we'll see here,
This is
still just as
APAC.
consistent as he was. And obviously a little bit of
EMA
fun going on
EMEA
here
is
too
done.
over the course of the race. A few
This
of our
is
players
this is
having to
Asia
ghost out
Pacific.
there a bit.
It's like
But
Asia and
Lags, of course,
Australia.
already having won. I believe our previous season got that nice experience of being able to go to the McLaren
They're just showing the
Technology
highlight.
Center,
Oh,
check that out,
that's
fight for a
exciting.
new prize this time. Of
Is
being
that the
able to go check out
MP44?
the
Yeah,
Spanish
yeah.
GP coming up in a few months as well.
both
Here.
seem
Always
to
some
kind of
fun
lose their
trips in the
rotation.
line here at the G Challenge, and he wants to claim them,
at them
especially
all
coming from the
sliding.
APAC region. That'll be quite a nice trip for him.
Who won the
that's kind of one
qualifying?
of the awesome things
Piastri.
between these both summer and
In the McLaren,
winter
on brand.
seasons is kind of the variety of
They knew.
experiences you can win with those first place finishes. So yeah, big ups again to these drivers, like you mentioned. Lags really having to put in that work, and that's kind of a theme we saw throughout
That's
the
a big
EMEA
send. I like
as
that.
well, right?
like that a
Throughout
lot.
these grids, there's a lot more battling, really having to earn those first place
So is it
finishes.
Lags? Lags is
as
gonna win
the
APAC.
competition throughout these grids continues to become more and more difficult, more and more competitive.
full grid here?
As we see again, Lags, like we mentioned, having to battle there throughout all of these
Oh
races,
my
and then of course
God.
the rest of the grid, similar to our
Look at this.
EMEA
Look at
region.
this.
It's really fighting for
There's
every
Lags.
spot. As we see more and more, again, THR representation, love it throughout this region, and yeah, kind of throughout
What car
here
was
in
the
APAC,
green one with the simple
specifically
K? I don't-
on this,
in here.
race number 3 track car combo.
The
keeping
cars
it a little
here
tighter, I
are
think,
the
as well than we saw in
M7B,
EMEA. So
the MP44 and the
those
McLaren
positions
P1.
not
They're all
as spread
McLarens.
out in some of these spots, but of course, Lags able to work for those P1s
for the win.
and Kireth kind of being his nemesis rival out there on the track.
Lags, you saw they're really only reclaiming P1 for the final track in those final few seconds as well, but he managed to take it every single time for all 3 of our races that we had here in the Grand Final Series, and that gave him a well-deserved first place finish with 77 points on the board, a staggering 10 points
that's
ahead of his
APAC.
second place finisher, who, again, credit to
Then they're gonna
Kireth,
show us, I
just
think,
as
highlights of
consistent. They're
Latam.
finishing in second place in every single one of our races, just not
green
able
one,
to
that's
take
the
the heat
kick-
from
that's
Lags,
the state
unfortunately, and
kick
he was able
car.
to get the best of him every single time, despite even in some situations seeing Kireth qualify ahead. So nicely played by Lags for sure. They're a very well-deserved first place and a very well-deserved lead there ahead of the rest of the pack too.
Yeah, and then of course going down, TNR, Dez, Zach, Fem Racer, Jaden, all kind of, placing in some of those higher prize
money's been
pools
won here.
across the board. Like we mentioned, at the beginning, every single spot in our grand final is walking away with some cash. So it's not just the experience for first, but there's also that nice big prize pool that's distributed
come
across
it's on
our
the track?
entire grid for every region.
What do you mean?
Yeah, so shout outs to kind of
mean
everyone
the medical car?
throughout our 4 regions, our
what you
16
mean?
qualified drivers for kind of making this a great show, great program, and some exciting races across the board. Then, of course, not only APAC, but we did take a look at LATAM as well, where we definitely had to get the stewards involved for this region. And, for
Classic
what it's worth, it
LATAM,
makes
let's
it
be honest.
exciting, but we definitely had some things to review.
Let's be honest.
As LATAM, always an exciting region, always
Show us what
kind
happened
of,
here.
fighting for those positions, for better,
could be
for
carnage.
worse at times, as we kind of take a look at our action
RBM.
here.
You'll notice on the grid, too, it was two teams primarily that took over the overall grid spacing for the Grand Finals here in this region. Both the RBM and Dex clans dominated those finals, holding 9 out of the 10 top spots that we'll eventually see on the scoreboard here in a few moments. But like you were alluding to there, Frank, let's check out some of the action. As we'll see, the stewards had to get involved a little bit here. A much closer contended race, really on all 3 of the circuits this time around here. And we're going to see that in this replay footage as well. But still some clear leaders, and we're seeing 2 of them right now at the front of the pack on the very first race of this series between Vinny and McGesney that we're going to be trying to maintain control throughout the course of this series of 3 races.
Yeah, and even all the way at the back of the pack, you see Dex fighting it out. The battle is just as intense. If we just showed you that clip, you would probably think that they were fighting for P1 and P2 as well, which is kind of the theme of LATAM. What kind of transpired throughout our 3 races in this region was just intense battles across the board.
Whoa.
As we see Wesley here, again,
man.
no stranger to the G challenge, working his way up into P3. There we see another RBM driver, again, Vinny and McGezin kind of going at it toe-to-toe in P1
RBM
and P2, as Vinny does manage to secure a P1 in that first race. And then going on to Silverstone, we kind of mentioned some of these turns. We mentioned some of the stewards that had to get involved. And of course, race 2, no slouch when it comes to intensity either, as we see a little bit of a love tap there at the start of this race.
And that's going to continue as well, really wrapping things around the first few laps of Silverstone.
Get stuck in, I say.
One player I wanted to highlight specifically is the one that's currently in P3 on this clip, COD Chaos, who was all over the grid. If you saw it back on our first race as well, we saw him at one point in P4. By the end of the race, he was way down in like P10 as well. So this guy was very fun to keep an eye on over the course of the finals inside of this region, as he just didn't really know what to expect from him. Always bringing that aggression, always bringing a capability to at least push himself forward. And I think on this track specifically, he does end up with a top 5 or top 4 finish, but always fun to see. Again, just a real wild
RBM, do they share it?
A 16-player grid like this.
They doing like papaya rules?
Awesome. And then this was definitely the anyone can win region. And a big thing to call out is in race 3, RBM Vinny is going to drop all the way into P12, I believe it was, and clawed his way up that leaderboard, the timing tower. You see him in 3rd right now, and he ends up closing out race number 3 in P2. There you see more contact, more close driving, more close calls.
This. Look at the guy at the inside.
This entire region, as the battles were intense, and they really
didn't
let up until that final lap.
Nice honorable mention from Julio here as well, as we'll see some of the final segments from this final Watkins Glen circuit. He ends up actually in the top 4 for the finals here on that race specifically, and that ends up pushing him into a very nice position on our final LATAM leaderboard, which we're going to be checking out here in just a moment. Vinny, still very much our champion, though not as dominant of a lead as we saw out of our former region over in APAC, of course, but still a confident win with about 5 points ahead of our 2nd place finish there in McGezin.
Yeah, and really it's an RBM podium here in our LATAM region as well. So big shout outs to the team. A great day there, but like you mentioned, some great
interesting if you're able to have a team,
Vinny, especially in that third race, to claw his way through the chaos, both figuratively and literally, as there is COD Chaos in P8 to win our LATAM region and be your G Challenge champion here today. So big congratulations to him. Big shout outs to these
I don't know if they record
regions,
this like
both
as
APAC
live
and LATAM, for continuing to put on a great show, allowing us to check out some amazing races. And congratulations to those winners who will again be winning that VIP experience.
What's that guy got on the right hand side? Is that a tablet?
So, with that being said, that's going to kind of cover our little recap of both APAC and LATAM. We're going to throw it to a brief commercial break again, and then we'll be back with our final North American Grand Finals. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
The Logitech G Pro Racing wheel and pedals are equally at home.
Do you think they just shoot that kind of like live as live. Anyway, so we'll see if the pay. See if the pay is any different in North America. It's interesting for me to see the racing is quite different in the P1 from the open wheelers. I think Forza, the handling in the open wheelers and the P1 is very different. Joe, I looked at a few of your videos. You do not need a script for self-driving. Need a good tune. What do you mean? Videos about what? Real-world driving? Forza GT? You don't need a script for self-driving. You need a good tune. What does that mean? I'm just going to mute this one because I've kind of heard it. It's going to, you know how it is. Oh, I still got the sticker on this. And here as well. Do you keep stickers on stuff? Like the plastic? I kind of just keep it on. Probably should take it off. For Goliath, if you turn your car to go 220, you will not crash or spin out. I took a little break and came back to worse. What's Goliath? Hang on, I don't understand these comments at all. For Goliath, it sounds like some sort of riddle. If you turn your car to go 220, you will not crash or spin out. I don't know what Goliath is. So they're all USB-C. I guess, is there one pass-through here? Like, you plug all your consoles and there's one pass-through? Or do you have splitters? I don't know how the A50X works.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to your Logitech McLaren G Challenge Grand Finals broadcast. We've got one remaining region to crown a champion in here today, and that is going to be in North America. Super excited to get into this one because similar to
North America.
EMEA, we have the potential of a 3-time champion here coming up in Force 1.
Very much the case. Force 1 has very much dominated this circuit previously, so we're going to see
sounds
if he
like
will,
the pro
for the 3-peat
in
this
America.
time around, re-earn that experience, and of course the cash prize that comes along with it. That's always nice as well.
Yeah, we know he can predict the weather, but is he predicting a victory here today is going to be the big one on our broadcast. So checking out race 1 qualifying, off to a good start, but just by a hair here in the lap time is going to be Force 1 in that first position, followed by RBM Lightning and Vettel. So looks like it'll be a pretty competitive grid here in North America.
Lightning gonna have to see if he can be a true lightning bolt, work his way past Force 1. We were looking for a contender over in EMEA, and we managed to get one, of course, but now that test will happen here in North America. And just like our previous series, we're going to start things out over here.
So I wonder what's going to happen in the F1 tomorrow.
With the 1976
with Lando. I don't know if Lando's going to come through the pack,
very iconic
or Lando's going to get swallowed up.
2013 movie Rush. That was the James Hunt car in that movie.
It's an incredible comeback, really, from
let's see how our sim racers handle it here today as we get started with the first race of North America.
Well, in the first race in Melbourne, you had a good comeback
anyway. For the day, final
to get a couple of points
to be crowned. And Force 1 is going to be looking for the 3-peat, but all that grid behind him gunning for that spot as well. So we'll have to see how it plays
that's robust.
Trying to stay kind of clean here.
That's robust. Oh, my days.
Couple of
turns.
Get
hooked in. One of them backed out.
For the time being, Force 1 has able to get out clean.
Force 1 has been unleashed here.
A little bit of shuffling going on here as well, especially further back on the grid, of course. But now we'll wait and see if things continue to happen.
I want Wangan to win. Where's Wangan?
Close contention there on the very first turn, working our way through Elf. Will it be the same as we come around this wide bend here, exiting seat? Not the case necessarily, though. Force 1.
I think Lando ends up second with Piastri. Yes, I was thinking, is Lando going to come through to second?
Lead over our P2 challenger,
but will they have to do some kind of interesting? We'll have to go long or something.
The power we've come to expect from him from previous series.
Yeah, and like
and
you
will the
mentioned, a lot of that
Mercedes actually be able to
shuffling
put pace
going
on,
in those
put
little
pressure on Oscar?
pockets as we see some
first time,
drivers
really,
dropping
like, sustaining
back
it.
towards the back of these groupings, but everyone else keeping it kind of close. I know I saw some other battles between Blazian and Bowtie taking place as they exchange spots on that leaderboard. But like you kind of said, it's Force One sitting on a little bit of cushion here at the start, but of course plenty of race.
I do think
left
Oscar's
here
just going to
in
run away
our
with it.
first on the NA region.
Bit of movement there in P4.
I mean, the news coming into the weekend was like McLaren are actually seriously quick. But it's,
now back down, still in the top 5, of course, but one position.
The qualifying
lower.
didn't go that way. There seemed to be a lot of track. I suspect there might have been some wind change going on.
Clean for the most part, but like you were mentioning, some of those back markers wiping out a bit. We saw, I think, 2 of them have a spin out there, end up further back. They're going to have to see if they can recover a bit later into this race.
I think
front, it is the chase to try and catch Force One right now. The lead has
I think it's going to be interesting for Verstappen and Lando, because what if Verstappen just puts a load of pressure on Lando really early? He'll be extra motivated to do it. I mean, there's championship rivals there.
Yeah, it feels like all throughout the top half.
I wonder who Max would rather wins. I think Max maybe would rather Oscar wins. I just get that feeling.
Gonna have to see some clean and consistent driving throughout this pocket. And for the most part, Force One able to stay ahead of the pack and avoid most of the drama that might be occurring throughout our other drivers as they fight to work their way up. And again, you know, really wanting to set the tone here.
Anyway, we'll see tomorrow.
First race, you want to start strong, really give yourself, if anything, kind of the ability to relax and sort of focus.
Sonoda as well.
Upcoming races. Don't
what if Sonoda
math on the fly as you get
starts
into
to
the
do really
second and third races and figure out what position you
definitely
want
doing
to
a lot
be
better
in
than
or don't want to fall into. Really just want to give yourself the best shot at finishing strong and at the podium. As we see Vanquish trying to contest, working his way up. Looks like Lightning
Wangan is moving up. I don't want to start a massive Wangan hype party here. But Wangan's in 12th.
Work his way into those upper positions. Vettel as well, another driver who's been
Hamilton got some bad
really
wind.
well in qualifying, so we'll have to see if
Hamilton is just like
here to our live race.
But the thing is, we know Charles is really good at qualifying.
But in the last few seconds here from D-Plot, a lot of shuffling happening between P12 and P15. So the back
look at that
very
drift.
much an active point here between those races.
You can still see that pointiness, like trying to get the car to rotate. Like they kind of, it looks like you kind of unload it and then you reload it. You unload, you reload. Unload, load, unload.
At least $100, and if you're able to push yourself to a higher place, but obviously it'll increase exponentially up to our top prize past that point.
Oh yeah, definitely want to fight for every position available
Nice
while
exit.
keeping it clean, as I did see Bowtie and Blazian again just battling back and forth.
Does Forza have better replay
spots.
tools than GT? I'm just trying to think, like,
in
what we see
these
here.
Positions throughout race number 1. Vettel still hanging on
What do you
pretty
think?
solid in 4th.
Oh.
Movement again happening around our other players, Blazian and Bowtie. Still kind
Was
of
it pretty
exchanging
similar, actually?
back and forth, but Vettel still
Not too much
trying
difference.
to find that opening on Lightning.
By the way, if you're watching and you
some
haven't yet
sort of
entered,
move
do
that he
check
can
out the
make.
pinned comment
Fallback
in
here
the
from
chat.
Vettel, considering where he started the race out in P3. Lightning able to overtake him in the last, I believe, lap or so here. And Vettel now really just fighting for revenge on that front, trying to see if he can work his way back up towards P2, of course, where he'll ideally want to be landing at based on prior performances.
Go around the
that we've seen
outside.
out
Go
of
on.
him.
Oh,
But
what's happened there?
away from that,
Is that a penalty,
he will be
maybe?
able to take control of P3, but only for just a split second or so. Lightning battles right back for it as they work their way through the first turn on.
I love it when
lap
you can
number
cut
4
back there and go
continue
around the
to
outside.
bump a little bit against each other here, coming around
very
through
nice.
the big swing. Before we enter Repsol, looks like Vettel does take the lead, but Repsol might get the better of him here on that turn, and indeed has to cut the speed down way too heavily for that curve. Does allow for Lightning to take over, but again, Lightning can't hold on.
Like, when I say Max
It's
Lando is a
back and forth
battle of
all over the
egos
place between these two drivers here
right
as
now.
they come
Guessing
around
Lando
to
rather be 19.
Yeah, a little bit
Oh, so you think
squirrely
it's a
for
real
Vettel there
head to
at
head?
times. Feels like was able to make the moves, but
Maybe it
really
runs
couldn't
deep.
lock it
Welcome,
in,
Play
so
Right. Big
Lightning
likes, thank you so
able to
much.
Capitalize on that, regain that position, but now we know
Final
Vettel
to the
can
Logitech
make
McLaren
the
G
move. We just have
Challenge
to
here,
see if he can
North
perfect it
America.
and lock
We've
in
gone through
that
the whole lot.
higher placing. against Lightning as he continues to try and defend here.
SDW must be a big team in the States.
Yet another move against him, cuts in
Imagining.
very narrowly there, coming back around through that last turn to be able to try and take it away from him. Won't be.
I just wonder what you feel like if you're Charles Leclerc. That do you think actually Ferrari just never quite going to outcompete, you know, Red Bull, McLaren, Mercedes, all at the same time? Lando needs points.
The pressure's still on. It still seems to be somewhat working to close the gap versus Lightning. So he's going to keep that pace going forward on the long straight past the finish line.
There was a race last year where Lando bottled it, right? And then he came back. Was it Hungary? Where he bottled it in quali and he came back and he got it done.
Last lap too. Lightning cuts him off one more time, continuously denying P3 for Vettel.
Lightning proving that he can strike.
I feel like Mercedes are the team with least pressure on them. But there's more pressure on Ferrari than Mercedes.
And then of course,
this is just from the outside though. Like they might be applying a huge amount of pressure internally.
I've seen Ascari trying to fight,
but they're also quite sophisticated about how to manage drivers and psychology and not putting too much pressure.
That begs to be answered is, can he maintain this positioning?
Once again, seems to finally be gaining that slight edge over Lightning, opening up the gap to, at least for now, a safe distance between him and his opponent. But a little bit of sand running there to slow him down once again. Cuts off the track, though. Nice defensive maneuvering. Keeps Lightning away from P3.
This is going to end in one of them going into the sand, I reckon. Just going to call it. Just going to say. Send it, send it, send it, send it. Oh my gosh. That was so close.
As they work their way around one of these crucial turns, working their way up to Bonk Sabadell. And
man.
A little bit squirrely there too, but still has the inside lane. Vettel again.
It's a great battle.
Though, prevents a pass at this stage here on lap 5.
I mean, well played by Lightning, just regaining control there. Could have ended in disaster for him, but
I think it will
continue to do a great job of just closing that door on all the moves. Lightning
He's behind this lot. White out Ascari. More SDW drivers.
Halfway through our first race in North America, the battle between Vettel and Lightning.
Wasn't quite brave enough on the brakes there. Wasn't quite brave enough.
Continues to go as well. Neither one of these drivers seems to be able to get the edge over the other, at least for a longer period of time. Lightning gets the pass once again.
Look at the pain here to try and get that turned in.
Around Renault and working up, of course, towards Repsol. Another big swing going to be having to come in here from both of these drivers. Vettel, unfortunately, just tired.
Surprised the drivers behind aren't catching up.
Right into his opponent in front of him. Sees if he can maybe force something out of Lightning. Won't end up happening this time around, however. And up towards our next turn, could see an opportunity here, but Vettel has been forced back. I think in part due to that bump, slows him down quite a bit. It does lock in those positions for now.
Yeah, Vettel still hot on his tail. Throughout the grid, you know, a lot of players.
Imagine a battle like this in F1 these days, like where you just saw like wheel-to-wheel battle. Thing is about battle in Formula 1, I think we've confused overtaking with battling. So with DRS, you now have overtakes. You don't really have battling, do you? You don't have battling like lap after lap, swapping places. You just don't get that at all. I mean, when was the last time there was genuine battling in Formula 1?
Fighting so hard for this P3. You were mentioning it there, force one pretty
It's
safe.
those moments like in Bahrain 2016 or like Spa 2007, like these kind of battles, not just overtakes.
For the foreseeable future here as well.
DRS is almost like, it's like if there were two tracks and you just put the car ahead on a slower track and let the car behind overtake. It's not a battling.
Drivers now entering lap 7 here, and Vettel still right on the tail of Lightning, trying to take things away from him. Will we see another shift? Or is Lightning finally starting to surge ahead?
I wonder how the Formula E, what happened in Formula E today? Who won Formula E?
That story, however, as we do see Vettel coming in, a stronger exit from the previous turn, getting right behind Lightning, wants to see if he can go wide on this one.
Who won in Formula E?
Dig in there, but not a wide enough angle there for Vettel to be able to overtake. Unfortunately, at this point, he still sticks behind, locked into P4 still.
Yep, not enough for Vettel to make that move, but like we mentioned,
I don't know what the race was like.
Out in front of the
I reckon it was going to be very much about
at this point. Doesn't have to worry about much other than just keeping
regen.
These laps clean and closing this one out ahead of the pack. Similarly, Vanquish in P2 kind of relax just a little bit, focus on good, clean driving, and let everyone else.
Seems like it was a controversial race, actually.
Behind him, Lightning and then Vettel.
2021.
Again, some distance between Vettel and Whiteout, so Vettel doesn't have to worry.
Hang on,
too
but even in
much about
2021,
any pressure from behind,
like,
but
name
it
me
is
some
all
great
about
battling
making
moments in
this
2021.
move out front.
Like, we had Silverstone, right? We had Monza, but these were like crashes basically, and obviously we had Abu Dhabi, but there actually wasn't battling in Abu Dhabi, really. There was just an overtake at the end. So even then, when do we have great battling? The good battling in, decent battling in Abu Dhabi was between Hamilton and Perez.
Can he cut off Lightning from a nice exit from Elf here? Looks like he'll certainly try to do that, maintains it, but coming around once again, he's going to have a weird entry into
Go on, around the outside.
So his speed coming up onto Repsol may still be a bit of a problem here. With that said, Lightning seems to have fallen back quite a bit this time around. So Vettel looks like he might be holding on to P3 for at least a little bit longer.
Do you know what I mean? Like proper battling.
We also see Deer
like 3 wide, multiple corners. It used to kind of happen, but the directors wouldn't show it because in the midfield. Now I just don't think it happens at all because we look at all the standings.
Also engaged in an intense battle of their own. But up top, towards that podium, it is an all-out war being waged for P3 at this point.
Money on the line here, cash and prizes.
Just trying to hold on here against Lightning, but Lightning definitely.
It says at the top, go ad-free for free. I don't understand all. I haven't had any adverts on this Twitch stream. Is that normal?
That is going to give an opportunity to Lightning. Vettel will be
or Forza paid for the stream or something.
Slowing him down even further. Lightning retaking again with only 2 laps to go. These racers can only exchange positions so many more times. It's hard to tell who's going to end up on top at the end of things, really, but this is the battle to focus on right now.
Great job from
2
Lightning
laps
there,
to go.
Closing the door on that corner. Looked a little shaky, but was able to recover and close.
Kireth, DRS, and ERS ruin most battles. The funny thing is, right, qualifying feels closer than ever. Like, qualifying is super close. Like, even today, the gap between 11th and 10th in Q2, I can't remember who got knocked out, but it was super close.
Focus, lock in, and really try to minimize those mistakes.
So it's super close in qualifying, but in the race, I guess it's a dirty air. Might be dirty air as well. Lando and Max last year, yeah, Austria, yeah, that's a really good one. It's funny, isn't it? How many times does the battling end up in crashes? Because maybe there's not that much battling that they become really high stakes moments.
Trickier part of the track where the turns are key to staying ahead here at this point, and we have these shorter straightaways that follow it. Such a fun dynamic to follow. Vettel going into the sand a little bit, doesn't end up affecting his momentum too much, though, from what we were able to see. Still right on the heels of Lightning. May have potentially lost momentum that could have been used for an overtake, however, and that's going to keep him locked into P4 as we work our way through those final key turns.
Maybe it's a romanticism of racing in previous times, though.
I think Lightning able to predict the moves Vettel's trying to make at this point. Nice job getting on that break, closing down that inside line, and really making Vettel have to get creative if he wants to find an overtake here.
This is where Vettel, look at it though, the exit from going into the final turn is going to look, at least at the start, quite a bit better from him. Some slight swerving on the front wheels as well there for Lightning. That could turn into something on this very long straight. Looks like it might be here in just a moment. Vettel crosses it again. Not a lot of brake zone left for these two.
Just leaving them space. Wow, he's got that stopped. Fair play.
In a moment, but thankfully he's still got
a Vanquish all over the shop.
Going into Elf and working our way around Renault. Vettel's got it yet again.
Maybe we'll get past Vanquish.
Now, like I said before, this is Lightning's expertise on the track. These areas
enemies
that require
vanquished.
a bit more precision in maneuvering around these turns. That's where Vettel has been traditionally losing the lead here, and he's fighting so hard to keep it against Lightning. Once again, Vanquish soars ahead as a result of this slowdown, and you can see it, Lightning just biting at the heels there of Vettel, trying to steal away P3.
We remember great battles and forget the boring races. There was a bit of complaint. Yeah, it is. It's the way F1 history sort of compresses, and like there might have been a really good race one season, but like that was a great season.
Lightning able to make another
great move. But I do think that the sound
Lightning just bullying Vettel out.
I think Formula One losing the sound is a bit like when football teams move out of their stadium. The football team says, "Oh, you know, it's our new home," and they do all these things to try and make fans feel at home.
Generally speaking,
but
he's not been able to gain
they don't always work.
Lightning at that point, so I think Lightning's done it, ladies and gentlemen. I think he has locked in P3.
You lose some of the soul, and I think Formula One lost some of that soul.
From Vettel. We'll see it in just a second here as they wrap back around, but that will still lock in Force 1.
Great
P1,
battle between those ones.
Vanquish will get P2, and across the finish line, it is going to be Lightning that locks in P3. Very well played.
Yeah, like West Ham. I mean, I was a season ticket holder at West Ham.
Yeah, just a crazy intense battle
Arsenal, like when you move stadium. Like West Ham at London Stadium.
What feels like all 10 laps of that first race.
Yeah.
That was pretty much
Wangan went down to 15th
between those two drivers and the rest of the grid. You know, some battles back and forth as well, but nothing quite as intense as what we saw between those two. So looking at our race number 1 results here in
they've always shown the fastest
America,
lap.
it is going to be Force 1 finishing in first, Vanquish in second. Lightning is able
what was the screen they just showed us?
With
Hang on.
third place finish.
Can I go back into it?
Vettel
What did they
is
just
going
show
to
us?
lock in fourth, with the rest of the grid falling.
Because now Wangan's in
behind.
13th.
But with the kind of action that we saw between Lightning and Vettel here in NA, it looks like it might be an exciting region if we continue to see those battles throughout the rest of these races. So with race 1 now being in the books, we are going to go ahead and throw it to a brief commercial break, and then we'll...
I predict we're going to get a commercial from Rich for the Logitech G Pro wheel, where he's going to talk about how you can clamp the G Pro to the desk, but if you do, don't tighten it too tight. There's no need to. And because the Logitech G Pro goes up to 11 Newton meters, you should really use a sturdy desk. In addition, the pedals, this is what I think will happen, have like a straight back to them, so you can push them against a wall. It's not going to slide away from you. Now you're ready to go driving. That's what I think will be number 1. Then I'm going to guess there's going to be some kind of like really nice features about the pedals, and it might be CGI or not. This is just me guessing. And it's going to show like the springs, and like there's going to be some yellow on the spring, and like how you twist the blue thing to like, you know, change the strength of the pedals. And they'll do like a Logitech insert in the middle maybe, and then they'll show us some more stuff on the pedals. And then I think what they're going to do is they're going to show us maybe some headphones. I think like maybe the brand new Logitech G Astro A50X headphones, which allow you to play on PC, Xbox and PlayStation 5 at the same time, and it's got HDMI 2.1 ports and graphene drivers and 24-bit audio. That's what I think. Did I watch any football during COVID in stadium? I didn't. Well, obviously not in the stadium. I actually did watch a bit of football. I actually really liked it because I liked hearing the shouts and everything. Like, sometimes I turn the commentary off on FIFA and things like that. So, but the really interesting thing about that is when they did the football without fans, it sounded like a training game. Like, you could be in exactly the same stadium, like the Bernabeu or where PSG are or wherever, on a Wednesday night, and it just sounds like when I was playing 11-a-side, like in my local place. So that's really interesting, isn't it? It's like the fans make all of that atmosphere. We don't take it for granted.
America, and we will be crowning our final champion as well. So super excited to get into this one. So let's go ahead and hop into
Oh yeah, the cheering. Oh my days.
Going into race number 3.
Yeah,
and
that was
really no surprise here. SDW.
But stadiums do that. Like, I'm pretty sure Arsenal do it, and I'm pretty sure West Ham had done it.
Absolutely the case.
Like when there was a home goal, I'm pretty sure. Because they play all music and everything. Welcome back, JS.
Will be interesting to see what he does. I believe he's a little bit further back in race number 2.
Come on, Wangan.
Time to see if he can put the pressure onto players like Vettel now, having that closer proximity to him at the front of the grid this time.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and get into our third and final race in NA and our final race of the day.
Oh, what happened to race 2?
Again, you know, kind of liking the progression of cars and tracks.
What happened to race 2?
Here out on the grid, everything becoming a little bit more challenging, and you know, despite the region, it's always interesting to see how different.
Oh, is that chat? Did they show us race 2? Is that why there were 2 screens?
It looks like
did they show us race 2? Because I was like, hang on.
Early positioning from Lightning and Vanquish.
No, but you can go back. Just go back. When they showed us the 2 screens, did they show us race 2, like the results? Because that would make that's the only thing that makes sense in my head. Because it doesn't make sense in my head, and I don't like it.
Very similar to what we saw back in race number 2.
Also, have they? No, I thought maybe they'd up the graphics.
See if that's going to remain the case. Although Lightning coming up very close, bit of a traffic jam as we work around the.
Go on, lads. 8P1's wide. You can do it.
As they wrap forward to round out the boot portion, I should say.
I was just keeping an eye on Wangan.
One here, but still very much Force 1 in the lead, not slowing down a single second here. Lightning, though, like I said before, very close.
So Force 1 is just going to run away from. Who is Force 1?
Yeah, Vettel, Lightning, Whiteout, Vanquish, Legacy, all of these drivers kind of have been
top 3
at each other's heels in one position or another throughout these races here today, but really the one thing is Force 1 out in front of the pack. So Vettel, again, like we mentioned, despite that
spent a lot of time at Watkins Glen this week.
Performance has been
camera movement is so dizzying. Is it because it's all like, I think it's like tracking a car, like really the rest of the grid. And RBM I think it's still tracking one car, but it's quite tight, the tracking. Like it's like in a game, whereas in real life the camera operator will be doing roughly. I suspect. We saw in the previous race, but of course we have seen that change at any moment, so we'll have to keep our eye out for any of that action.
Now, Lightning, he's been setting up a move here for quite some time. Where is he finally going to strike? This might be it right here.
Oh,
indeed.
wow.
Light breaking window for him, but he cuts right into Vettel's line, and Vettel just pushes him right out of the way.
Like nothing happened. Hang on. Did Vettel do anything wrong there? Did Vettel do anything wrong?
Still in P3 at the end of the day, just well behind his 2 competitors further up the field from him now.
Yeah, could have turned out way worse.
I could have. That move could have only been the best move if it was the best move in history.
Despite that contact, is able to recover, but now we have Whiteout.
I like this livery. Stands out
behind Lightning, and Vanquish not far behind him as well. So with all that action, it kind of gives a couple drivers behind you room.
Oh yeah, it does the zoom, doesn't it?
Plan out another attack. We'll have to see if that continues throughout this third and final race. But of course,
it is very zoomy, isn't it?
Force 1 is out in the lead, but SDW Vettel is definitely closer here than we saw in that previous race. So we'll see if he starts to contest our leader at all.
Vanquish also having a pretty interesting arc this race so far as well. Starting out, I believe, around 3rd or 4th in his qualification. Has dropped quite a bit down to 5th. But
oh my days! What is that? That ain't legal. That's not a legal move. Surely not.
Is working his way back into it. Whiteout, as we just saw, being his most recent victim, swinging right past him.
I'm not sure about that one.
Basically, no power to stop that whatsoever. Just falters back and lets Vanquish run away with it as both racers work their way out of the boot and into 2 of the final turns here on lap 2.
Yeah, some other players to kind of call out that we've seen in the mix in that action.
No, I know there was no race 2, but I feel like they showed us the results for race 2.
There, 7th through 9th, kind of hanging out.
That's what I suspect.
Their way up, trying to just solidify those positions on that leaderboard. Because of course, like we mentioned, you know, each position. All positions on the grid are going to be walking away with some prize money, but each position you kind of gain equates to a little bit more cash at the end of the day. Which
cold
cash has led to you know, some really fun battles even in that mid pack where everyone is still trying to work their way up the timing tower.
Props to all of our drivers, of course, just for making it this far to those grand finals. So definitely going to be rewarding them with something to walk away from at least, but this is still actually. I think
it might have been open tuning for this race. It's quite interesting.
Looking at all across the board,
very different tunes going on.
Greater than a second or 2 at the absolute most, safe for the very back of it. So Force 1 having to fight a little bit harder to maintain his P1 this time. No one directly.
So this year we did all of the qualifying rounds for G Challenge.
Of that, all things considered, just behind him.
Let's see what we do next year. Look at that drift. Look at that drift.
Blazian as well here, still trying to find a path against Bowtie. He's
so frustrating when you do that.
Around that first boot heel, but is not going to be able to contest it too much, and actually loses a lot of his speed in the process too. So opens up a window for Deerplot to at least try.
The other guy might have. No, he hasn't backed out.
Away from Blazian.
There's a white car going to go deep here. Going to go deep.
Turn is going to decide as they both wrap their way out of the boot. Blazian gets
aggressive,
cuts off positioning for Deerplot and is going to be able to hold for now.
Love seeing some of these great battles even towards the back of the group. We had mentioned Deerplot in that previous race with some of those moves he was making, so great to see that that's continuing here into our third race.
STW Vettel.
Glenn, of course, jumping
Watkins,
back
Glenn.
into our pole positions. It continues to be Force 1 out in front. Vettel trying to close the gap a little bit at a steady pace, but not really in striking distance just yet. And then a bit of a mirror of our previous race where P3 kind of drops back.
Where's Wangan down in 14th? Come on, bro. Come on.
Own battle waging in that P3 through
Thoughts on Piastri pole today? I think he did the job. I think Lando. I think everyone's interested to see how it goes down at McLaren. Like,
always have to be careful of how you navigate.
Is there going to be a split? Is it going to get a bit tense?
Driver, of course, that is going to test your capability to navigate.
Is something going to come out? We'll see.
A little bit of high-speed braking too, which can always make your car a bit squirrely, especially the P1 here. So.
Will there be a point in how's we know that Oscar last year was, played ball for Lando. He's quite smart about how he plays ball though. He does stuff that tries to build up favors. But is Lando really gonna give positions up for Oscar?
We do see
I'm not sure.
And Lightning close back and forth, maybe moving back and forth through those positions. We also have Legacy back here.
Here's the Legacy
on Ascari as we go into this turn. Can a move be made? We'll have to find out. As again, towards the top, things kind of start to settle in. Definitely less aggressive. Maybe a little.
That's a nice livery, that one.
Or a little more reserved, I guess I should say, than what we saw.
So every car got their own livery.
For the most part, players still looking to make those moves.
Some of them a bit battered. Piastri sounds so fed up and Jeremy can let me pass. Yeah, honestly, maybe Piastri had the pace. Maybe Piastri had the pace. That's the thing. We just don't know. We should have been allowed to
race through qualifying and then had to fall way back towards like P6 and is able to reclaim all three of those positions in the meanwhile. Bit of a sad story here for Vanquish, unfortunately, as we're going to see Lightning run right up past him. If he didn't catch it, Vanquish went into the sand for just a split second there, but it leads into a very big straight, so it cost him huge on speed retention, and that's how we're going to be able to see Lightning now soar right past him once again.
Yeah, really like what I'm seeing from Lightning overall as well. Had some unfortunate circumstances in some of those previous races, but I think across the board, really the
line into this corner.
Of a lot of these
See, look at the way he dives in and gets all that camber, and he sort of keeps in the he bleeds the speed when he goes up the camber.
Great to see. As
quite
Lightning
interesting.
now might be looking to try to catch up to Vettel when applicable, but of course it is Force 1 really being the story of the day here in our North American region.
Force 1 is just making us look easy.
I think we've seen on the day in both qualifying and in finishes, and so far again in our final race, content just sitting in the lead.
In some ways, it's Air Force 1 with how quickly he's able to work his way through the front of the pack there. So once again, massive props to him for just the consistent level of
dangerous levels of banter
that we've been seeing out of Force 1 throughout this entire series so far. All falls to really if he makes a mistake. That seems at least to be the only thing that could knock him out of P1 at this point, and that puts the pressure back on players like Vettel to kind of improve their own line to be able to finally close in on Force 1's consistency.
Banana in here.
Shakes up a little bit deeper into the grid, however. As we go into the last 6 here, past the halfway point, who still has a chance to make their impact? Vanquish definitely one to keep an eye on as he's recently lost some positioning to Lightning, but Lightning just as well, now nearly a second ahead of him, so still seeing a lot more to be gained here from P3 than P4 necessarily.
Yeah, Lightning, Vanquish, and Whiteout always kind of
it's
feel
been
like
crazy
our
to
powder
see,
keg in
me
these
personally,
races
the advancement
where
of
if they're
direct drive
grouped up,
wheels.
You never know quite
Like,
what's about to happen. I think thankfully in this third race, there's a little more distance between these three drivers, so the action not as
increasing
intense,
affordability
at least for the time being. We'll have to see if someone's able to make up some of that distance as we jump on board with Ascari here, who's also looking to climb.
By the way, seriously, how do you pronounce Forza?
Technical turn that they'll work their way into there. The toe
there's something in it that I can't do. It's like
bit of a complex curve to exit it there as you work your way around
like
the heel.
Forza.
It's all again about, like we talked about at the beginning of this broadcast, speed retention coming through those final couple of turns. The big straight, as it would often be
5 Newton meters to get him out.
Here to go past the finishing line is not as big on this track as you might see on some of our others. Catalunya being the biggest contrast to that, of course. You don't have as much capability to just run away.
By the way, what do you guys think about Twitch versus YouTube? So I'm watching this on Twitch.
Kind of speed against your opponents directly in front of you and potentially close the gap to overtake.
Why would people stream on Twitch over YouTube?
Yeah, just really like, you know, across the board, across the regions, what we've been seeing out of our drivers here today.
Make sure you enter
with the G
Forza. Oh, is it just like a T?
With qualifying both either in race days
Forza.
or in that Rivals playlist.
For some reason, sim racing content is bigger on YouTube.
You know, early on, we kind of saw some really fast
because I'm looking here, I've got
maybe
recommended categories. Call of Duty, 76,000 people watching.
Maybe even inexperience in some cases, but now that we're about 3 seasons deep,
is that a lot of people?
Forza G Challenge series,
I don't know these numbers.
Really
just chatting, 450,000 people. League of Legends, 134,000.
Just a lot of excitement across the board. As
I feel like there's like a meme culture
with driving in these high pressure situations, or even some of those rivalries start to develop between.
Well, Gamer Muscle streaming on Twitch right now. It says Lemon Ultimate Gamer Muscle,
like we've kind of seen,
but I suspect he's streaming on both. I do have a Twitch account.
A little slip up from Vettel. We'll see if Lightning's able to capitalize on that now. May appear very minute in how it affects Vettel, but coming up on this next turn, that could be an opportunity for him to potentially take.
Daniel Mora goes on Twitch.
Now down from a half second to 0.4 here, so an opportunity.
I feel like Twitch is maybe more competitive or something. I don't know, like.
Waiting to see if he's actually going to be able to take it, and he certainly wants to. As we wrap out of the.
It's different cultures though. It's kind of like Pepsi and Coke. It's like it's not the same. It's maybe hard to explain what the difference is.
We cannot see that heartbreaker moment that we saw back on our first.
I feel like if I did some streams on Twitch, I'd be a different sort of character.
That's going to start to slow him down as well. Meaning once again, Force 1 will be the real winner out of all this situation as he gets that much further ahead. And
I prefer YouTube because you wind back and watch replays. Yeah, I mean that just seems like a nice feature.
And steal away P2.
And how they automatically become, although live streams automatically become videos, it's not actually always a great thing. You can mess with the algorithm. Like this stream will become a video, and YouTube might think, oh, well, hang on, you know, no, you might think certain things about the channel. Coke all day, every day. I drink too much Coke these days. Nice move, nice move. Like that.
Take it into the corner though and just completely cuts off Whiteout to make it nicely raced by Seldom Legacy.
The thing is, if I was going to stream on Twitch, I'd probably rather stream on TikTok, because at least I feel like TikTok is different.
Despite those conditions, good on the fly racing from him there to be able to maintain.
But I don't. I always stream on YouTube.
Take positioning away from his opponent directly behind him there. That fight, however, between.
But I could have streamed this watch along also on TikTok. In fact, I probably should have done. I don't know why I haven't.
About a tenth of a second splitting the difference.
For something like this, I mean that's just a no-brainer.
Desperately is trying to reclaim P2 yet again.
But it's kind of chatting, and I can look at the chat all the time. I'm not racing and looking.
Right behind him.
It's looking like a high potential for a three-peat victory coming in here for Force 1, unless anything crazy shakes up.
There'll be 2 laps to go.
Personal driving here, due to Vettel and Lightning having to kind of hold back and duke it out between the two of them. Vanquish a little bit further behind, but a solid 2.5-second gap will be quite tough unless there's a.
Yeah, YouTube is like Coke, I would say.
Those positions will be.
I would say YouTube is like Coke and Twitch is like Dr. Pepper or something. And like TikTok is like Monster.
Gets P2 away from Lightning, and Lightning really seemingly falling behind on that smaller straightaway there. want to see a better picture of it now as we start to wrap back around the 90, and no, not really able to regain a lot of that positioning. Lightning losing a lot of speed there in those final few turns coming out from the boot, and he loses P2 in a very similar way to how Vettel lost.
It'd be funny if tomorrow the race.
Yeah.
Could that happen? I think
back and forth there.
Verstappen is going to be way further down there.
See if Lightning is able to make another move as we near the end
Just eat
of
that chicane.
our third and final race here on the day. Lightning trying to close that gap, kicking up a little dust, seeing if another move can be made on Vettel.
Back on the field, of course, some more of our drivers still trying to gain additional positioning, those few extra points, trying to see if they can bump up their prizing another stage or two here by sneaking in a few extra points on Watkins Glen. But it's
Verstappen thrives in that kind of environment.
Final lap starting in just
I think we might look back and say that Japan race was seriously impressive.
However,
seriously impressive.
Still trying to catch up to Vettel now. It's very much a cat and mouse game between those two. Vanquish is reducing the time between him and Lightning as well. Some of this slowdown may finally come back to bite players like Vettel, as this could get a little nasty here.
Going to be the last lap
if he's able to fully close that
of
gap.
the G Challenge. So hopefully we'll do a similar thing next year where we do all the qualifiers and do some guides and try and get faster. Definitely got a lot faster at Forza,
potentially shake up our P2 finish,
which is awesome.
Which consistently was looking to be Vettel, but he also had a slight mistake on our first track that cost him that as well.
Obviously we went to McLaren as well, shot some stuff at McLaren, which is pretty cool. That's one of the sometimes one of the prizes is to go to McLaren, which is quite cool.
In the perfect position to try to make a move here, going into our final lap and secure just a couple of those extra points to try to bump their way up in those.
I think it's been 2 years of the G Challenge on Forza as well, because when I started doing G Challenge, it was on ACC, and I think this is the second year it's been in Forza.
Fight for second against Vettel.
Rest of the grid
I suspect they turned off track penalties here, and then they'll review them at the end, perhaps.
So doubt we'll see anything shake up further.
Oh
back.
my
it's really
days!
Just this question now between Vettel and Lightning in terms of who wins it out, and obviously if Force One continues.
But it's cool. They're going to win. They're going to win cash
to cross the finish
for their hard work practicing. And there's been lots of giveaways, like there's one going on right now. Logitech G giving me a wheel to give away. We've already given away one Jeeper already. And lots of Astro headsets, A50 headsets.
Force One. How many of those fastest lap points was he also able to secure? Like, how many points out of our total did he kind of go with here today?
So I don't know other brands that are doing kind of stuff like this.
Races, but also, you know, how many
where you have those participation prizes, but
cool. As well.
It's a late move.
A little maneuvering here from Vanquish of all players as well, storming in. We mentioned that there was a slight possibility he might be able to creep up onto Vettel as well as Lightning, and he's certainly done so. Vettel will be very happy about these turn of events because he can focus on just finally escaping away from Lightning, and it seems like Vanquish may be able to do that as well, stealing P3 away out of absolutely nowhere. Force One will confidently cross the finish line in P1.
Frankie doesn't have much luck.
It seems like the worst possible outcome.
Your luck can only change then.
As out of absolutely nowhere,
only
Vanquish
change.
also storms up and steals away P3 to end this race.
So Force One has just dominated that.
In those final moments,
to be fair,
by Vanquish, but really it was all about Force One in the first, the second, and now third and final race. Coming in first here, and then of course, like we mentioned, Vettel coming in second, Vanquish in third, and then RBM Lightning with those final moves occurring is going to finish race number 3 in fourth.
So
that means with that third and final race being complete, we're able to take a look at NA's final standings. And Blue, some quick maths here. Force One, 1 point away from the perfect day. So missed one.
So 78 was perfect. So 75, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Cool.
So about as perfect
that makes sense.
as perfect can be.
I didn't understand it before.
Force One, as he secures
streaming on Twitch. Okay.
G Challenge Grand.
I don't have a lot of time. Like
final thoughts on our
time is quite limited. If I had more time, I would.
Massive props to Force One.
What? There's still a sticker on my G Pro.
Not just this season, but the previous seasons as well.
You're joking me.
That he is the one and only here in North America, as far as this sim is concerned, at least.
I leave stickers on everywhere.
That's going to be the question for next season. Now, is will anyone be able to step up to the plate? Will Vettel improve his times potentially to finally steal that away from him? As obviously, props to Vettel as well for a solid second place finish, and Vanquish as well, closing things down there in third place.
I need to take sticky tape off stuff.
Nice finish there in the third race versus Lightning.
Yeah, it's GT World Series on, isn't it?
The grid was kind of all the way down in points, so really kind of displaying how important some of those little battles are towards even the middle.
When are
and
the slots?
back of the grid when it comes to those.
Is it just North America slots now?
But with North America being wrapped up and Force One being your 3-time champion, that means we are ready to close out the day here.
We're closing it out.
Of course, before congratulating all of our regional winners. So throughout the day, again, shout outs to our.
I'm going to try this enunciation style. See the video because
RBM Vinny, and then of course
it's quite positive, isn't it?
Force One wrapping up the NA region. There are your podium finishes for the day, and that's going to do it for this season of our Logitech McLaren G Challenge Grand Finals. Of course, big shout outs to McLaren,
because I would say Grand
Forza
Finals,
Motorsport, and Logitech G for making all of this possible. But
thanks Logitech G and McLaren.
Desk, I think that's going to do it here today, and we'll see you all next time. Peace.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining this watch along. It's been interesting to see kind of the way they drive in Forza Motorsport, like top drivers. I'm going to try and really step up my pace next year if we do more of this next year. So, yeah, that's Forza on Twitch. Look how much detail there is in this image. No cockpit cam. No, not available. Well, I'll include it in my next Forza video. I can't believe Piastri. Yeah. If Piastri wins and Norris doesn't finish second, he's lower. It's going to get very interesting, isn't it? Right, everyone. I'm going to keep myself fresh because I'm streaming the race tomorrow and I've got some stuff to do tonight. Actually, let me do that again. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I'm going to keep myself fresh tonight. Oh, I can't do it. I'll see you tomorrow then.